Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we have an issue of unfinished business on the agenda this evening that will resolve once and for all the prayer issue. However, as long as we haven't acted on it yet, I would like for you to lead us into the Lord's Prayer. Probably would be the last time, but right now that's still in play because we haven't acted on the unfinished business item. If there are no objections, I would like for you to do that. Thank you.
I don't think there are any objections. I've had a discussion with the solicitor who I think is of the view that that's a permissible practice. I don't know if anybody wants to hear from her or not, if we just proceed to the prayer. Okay. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Let's go to work.
Councilor Armand Mercier.
Here.
Councilor Rita Mercier.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Ramirez.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Donahue.
Here.
Councilor Elliott. Mayor Martin.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
8 present, 1 absent. Before we begin the meeting, I would request a moment of silence in darkened chambers in memory of Michael Ryan. Some of you may remember just a few weeks ago, we had Mr. Ryan here and honored him for acting heroically in rescuing 2 children from a gas leak situation on Sydney Street. Mr. Ryan passed away very unexpectedly over this past weekend. He was a young man, father of 2 children and 1 expecting. We appreciated his service here just a few weeks ago, and he'll be sorely missed by the community. If we could rise in a moment of silence and darkened chambers in his memory. May he rest in peace. The first item on the agenda is a proclamation concerning Recycling Week. We have some weeks ago, Councilor Caulfield suggested this would be a good opportunity for us to really bring attention to recycling efforts here in the city. This Saturday, we have the annual recycling day to take things that typically can't be collected at curbside, things like lead paint and non-latex paint and tires and things of that nature. That's going to be this Saturday at Colley Stadium, I believe. And in conjunction with that, I'd like to proclaim this Recycling Week in the City of Lowell. Whereas the City of Lowell and Recycling Office have played an active role in promoting recycling as a cost-effective and positive force for the environment, and whereas weekly curbside service provides for the recycling of glass, plastic, paper. From April to November, leaves, grass clippings, and brush cuttings are collected, and twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall, hazardous materials are collected. And whereas by actively recycling, we are leaving the earth in better shape than we found it, and we are providing our children and our children's children with a cleaner environment in which to live. Now, therefore, I, William F. Martin, Jr., Mayor of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim the week of May 5th, 2007 as Recycling Week and urge all citizens to participate in the effort. Given this first day of May 2007, I knew we were expecting Gunther Wallenstein, but here he is. Okay. So, Gunther, I'm going to present the proclamation. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's going on this week.
Thank you. Mayor, thank you for proclaiming Recycling Week, and councilors, thank you for having me today. This Saturday culminates an extra long week of events in the city. Last weekend we started with Earth Day, so we had many environmentally friendly activities, the greenhouse opening and composting and yard waste, so lots of things going on. This particular week we're doing tire recycling. The nice thing is in Lowell right now, these tires are collected curbside off the rims, so with your recycling bin you may put out tires, provided your residence gets city curbside refuse and recycling collection. And then on Saturday, as the mayor alluded to, we have Hazardous Waste Day. It begins at 9 a.m. at Colley Stadium. And this event is to take care of those items that are hazardous for transporting and for disposal in landfills and incinerators. So it's an opportunity for residents to bring mercury-containing items, which are the little cell batteries, rechargeable batteries, fluorescent tubes, the mercury fever thermometers, and also oil-based paints, solvents, pesticides, herbicides. So it's really a time to do some spring cleaning and empty out these hazardous items from the garage and the basement and bring them to Hazardous Waste Day. It starts at 9 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, we're all wrapped up, so be prompt. And we will continue the efforts of Recycling Week throughout the rest of the spring with curbside recycling of cardboard, glass, plastic, paper. So we urge all the citizens to participate in that. And I thank you for the moment to come up and present before you.
Great. Thank you very much, Gunther. Any questions, comments? All right, we have on the agenda for approval the minutes of the April 24th meeting. Motion to approve the minutes by Councilor Caulfield, second by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Under unfinished business, we have consideration of the non-sectarian prayer policy and practice. There is a memorandum in the packet from the solicitor. What's the wish of the council on the policy?
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Councilor Milanazzo, second by Councilor Rita Mercier. Roll call. Councilor Armin Mercier.
Thank you very much. I just have a couple of questions. Madam Solicitor, the first page of the memorandum has highlighted the following. While legislative prayer is constitutional, both the current practice of the council, I assume you mean the Lord's Prayer at that point, as well as the policy changes proposed will result in a violation of established clause of the First Amendment to the Constitution. Is this applicable to what you have brought before us in terms of the non-sectarian prayer?
I'm sorry, Councilor, could you just, what page were you on in terms of the opinion?
The first page
First
is your...
page? Oh, in the bolded
Yes,
language?
yes, yeah, it makes mention of
Okay.
violation. Is that the one that we also have before us tonight?
What's before you this evening is the legislative prayer
Yes.
to be implemented.
So is that what you mean? Did you include this in your statement here? Let me just, I'll give you a second to read it, but I read that to mean that our current practice, as well as policy changes proposed, which I assume the non-sectarian prayer that's being proposed, is what that falls under.
No.
No. This was, okay, this is on. The opinion was, this was the March 6th opinion that you had
Okay, so
gotten
that
some
doesn't-
time ago. And what that beginning part is referring to
Okay.
are the proposals that had been referred to the law department, namely our current practice, the
Okay.
proposal from
So it's
Leela.
not the proposal we're talking about?
It is not the proposal that's before you this evening.
I also have one more question. What we're asked to do tonight is to adopt the prayer that was recommended to Gleela by Reverend Ricky Atkins from North Carolina. And in reading Gleela's memo, they indicate at the bottom that it's been slightly modified by the Moral Leadership Committee of Gleela to reflect the specific needs of our city. In reading what you've brought forward, it also looks to me like you slightly modified that also. Am I right?
That's correct. Yep.
So we have a prayer being recommended by some Baptist minister from North Carolina that has been modified and twinkled with by Gleela and now the city solicitor. In my judgment, although I disagree and I'm not a lawyer, that's probably the way I can, with the opinion that the Lord's Prayer is unconstitutional, I have to be guided by our democracy, which is the rule of the majority. I therefore would like to offer in substitution the following motion: that the city council, prior to the deliberation, stand in a moment of silence, and that every individual councilor can at that point pray as they see fit silently, which shouldn't affect anyone, and that would allow me the opportunity to silently say the Lord's Prayer. Therefore, I offer that in substitution.
Substitute motion by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Ramirez. Any further discussion? Roll call on the substitute motion.
Councilor Arman Mercia,
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia,
No.
Councilor Milonazo,
No.
Councilor Ramirez,
Yes.
Councilor Broderick,
No.
Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Donahue,
No.
Councilor Elliott, Mayor Martin.
No.
Motion fails. 5 nays, 3 yeas, 1 absent.
5 nays, 3 yeas, 1 absent. The motion fails. Roll call on the original motion.
Councilor Arman Mercia,
No.
Councilor Rita Mercia,
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo,
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez, Councilor Broderick,
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott, Mayor Martin.
Yes.
6 yeas, 2 nays, 1 absent. Motion passes.
6 yeas, 2 nays, 1 absent. The motion is adopted. Under the city manager's portion of the agenda, we have communications and requests from the manager in response to several council motions. Any questions or comments concerning any of those items?
Mr. Mayor, I've already discussed it with the manager prior to the meeting. I had a couple of motions that apparently didn't find its way channeled properly, but I understand that you're going to pick it up.
We are following through on both of those motions.
Okay.
Councilor, I know that one of them has already been referred to the Board of Parks.
Oh, it has been. Okay, I
And-
didn't see that in the memo, so that's fine.
But we
Thank
will,
you.
we will follow up to get
Thank
you some documentation on that.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question, and it isn't pertaining to any motion. If you'd want me to suspend the rules to ask this question, fine, or if I could just say it right now, I'm concerned about...
What's the subject matter,
It's, I'm concerned about the, I'm understanding there's a couple of vacancies in the Conservation Commission. And is that true, Mr. Manager?
Yes, it is. I hope to, if I may, Council.
And I'm just asking if you're in the process to appoint anybody filling the positions.
I've interviewed one candidate for the position already, and I'm following up with a couple of other people right now. I hope to have that either for this next Tuesday coming up or the Tuesday following.
Within the next 2 weeks, the 2 positions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is not a response from Manager Lynch on a motion. I received a call from a constituent. The Traffic Subcommittee convened a meeting, Councilor Broderick, Councilor Rita Mercia, about residential signs, and I received a call that nothing has been acted on it, and I just like to get some answers from the law department, how they're going to address that, so.
They are working, there's a group working on that right now, of members from the
Okay.
the law department as well as from planning and
Okay.
development.
I told a constituent I would bring it up, and thank you.
Okay, Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you. We did receive a communication from the Greater Lowell Technical High School regarding their budget, which was approved. The number for Lowell, which is $5,264,017, is that in keeping with what it was last year, or do we know at this particular point?
I believe that is a small increase over last year. And we've worked that into our budget that we're compiling right now, and we'll have a recommendation to the council on that within the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. Speaking of budget, do we know when the council might be getting the budget, Mr. Manager?
Our goal is still May 15th, but it's possible that we may have to push that back to the 22nd. But I know that we want to get it out. I committed to the council that we would get it out to you in May rather than wait until the June timeframe, and we're sticking to that.
Thank you.
Anything further? Motion to accept the communications from the manager as placed on file by Councilor Broderick, second by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The communications are accepted. Under public hearings, we have an ordinance creating a position of solid waste inspector, establishing the salary therefore in the Department of Public Works. We'll open the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. Anybody wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this ordinance? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? in opposition? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. It's the wish of the council. Council Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This is on the public hearing creating the position for solid waste. It's ironic that you have decided to name this week as Recycling Week, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank you for that. I am going to support this position. I think the dividends that will come from this will be twofold. Right now, the city of Lowell is only recycling 13%. That's disgraceful. If we increase that by 17%, the savings would be $935,000. This position would pay for itself time over and time over. And I've heard some jokes about we're going to have a recycling police, a trash police. That's not what it's all about. I think it's public relations to go out into the neighborhoods and inform people the advantages of recycling, encourage people to recycle, where they can pick up a recycling bin. Gunther Wellstein can't do it by himself. And this is also going to address dumpsters too, Mr. This is, I'm going to support this.
Yep, Mr. Manager.
Councilor, it's most of the dumpster work will still be done by the health inspectors.
Yes, but
one thing we are focusing on is a concern that a number of councilors have raised to me, including yourself, that we have trash being imported into the city.
Definitely.
And we want to crack down on that so that the city residents aren't paying for trash that's generated from outside the city of Lowell.
This will make the city cleaner, and that's very important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a communication here from Assistant City Manager T.J. McCarthy. This was as a result of the council motion, I think, and getting together a task force, which you had already begun, and it's a recommendation coming out of the task force.
That's correct.
And it basically is to try to cut down on what's imported in, essentially, separate from Mr. Wellenstein's position.
It's separate. It's Mr. Wellenstein focuses more on the educational aspects and the management of the solid waste contracts and promoting recycling in the community. This will really be his will provide assistance to him going out into the neighborhoods, as Councilor Caulfield pointed out, to enforce the ordinances that are on the books, as well as those that are being proposed that will cut down on the importation, but also push for increased recycling within the community.
Okay. Do we have any idea what the importation is costing us?
It's hard to quantify that. Clearly, I think that the salary alone that we're paying will be more than paid for by this. Okay,
that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, do we have a hiring freeze on at this point?
No, we do not, Councilor.
Is this any grant money available for this position?
No, there is not. We do have grant money that comes in to help us with our recycling program, but it's a relatively small amount now. The state used to pay a larger amount towards recycling, but they've cut that back. But as I said earlier, I think that this is the type of position that essentially pays for itself. If we can cut down on the importation and cut down on the recyclables that are being disposed of, then there's no reason why this can't more than pay for itself many times over.
So we're concerned with this request here. We're concerned because we feel that people are bringing in their goods here, dumping them off in the city, right?
We feel that there are people that are bringing goods into the city and dumping them off here, as well as recyclable materials that are being placed on the curbside that should be recycled.
Therefore, I say we have a police department. I don't know why we don't have the eyes and ears of the neighborhood to call that hotline number. If we can have a hotline number to create people a call with a pothole, why can't they call that hotline number, which is the graffiti number, which is in the inspectional service department, that they can call that number and say, someone with this plate number just dumped off a TV over here. I can't support another position. I think nothing against you, I know you're doing your job. If we needed anybody hired, it would have been in the treasurer's office to figure out our finances and to cancel checks, and I know you're working very hard, that's where I would have put a position. Yes, recycling is very important. Yes, it costs a lot of money, but we have the eyes and ears of the neighborhood. We needed a code inspector or a health inspector. These are the people that we need. But to say a recycling person to cut down on people dumping, let's reinforce the law and say that, let's look up these laws and say, anybody caught crossing the line and dumping their trash or their TVs or their batteries or whatever in any part of the city of Lowell, they're going to pay an exorbitant amount of money. They're going to pay a fee that they will never step foot in this city again. That's how you scare people away. Where's this person going to be? Riding around the city looking for... I don't buy it. I don't get it.
Mr. Manager?
Councilor, I agree with a number of the points you're making. I think, though, that this is something that will, you indicated that you would support adding a position in the health department, health inspector. This will free up the health inspectors to enforce the more intricate parts of the code dealing with the health department. I think it would be difficult for us to take an already strained police department that's dealing with much more serious issues of public safety to try to enforce the current and proposed ordinances regarding solid waste. I certainly appreciate where you're coming from in terms of adding positions. I am more committed to reducing positions, but something that pays for itself, whether through enforcement of the ordinances, or reduction of solid waste, or increased efficiencies. Those are the types of positions that I would support, which is why I don't think a hiring freeze is really not a sensible approach to delivery of government services.
Well, I understand that, but I'm thinking that perhaps we should look at this position after we see a budget. That's my concern right there.
Council Milanazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. What is the salary for the position?
$37,500.
Okay. Again, not being in a position to actually tell you how to hire the person, but can you give emphasis to people that are already employed here and promote from within, as to deal with Councilor Rita Mercier's issue? Would people be encouraged to apply for the position from within?
Certainly, it's an open position that people here in the city can apply for.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercier?
I just want to follow up a little bit. Mr. Manager, we're going to be getting a budget sometimes in May, well, sometimes this month. Do you anticipate that budget bringing about some layoffs?
It's conceivable there will be some layoffs. It's also conceivable that there will be positions eliminated through attrition.
Well, my first inclination would be that I also feel that that's a very strong possibility based on the revenue stream, and we don't have the budget yet. So it would seem to me that this should be put off until that determination is made, so that someone who was scheduled to get laid off would have an opportunity to do this job instead. I don't think it's fair to create a position, although I believe in the position, at a time when we may be laying off some of our own personnel that maybe could do this. And so do you see any problems with this being delayed until the budget is approved because of what I just indicated?
Councilor, I agree with much of what you've said. I think the only difference would be that this is a position with a unique job description. If we're eliminating positions in another department that are responsible for maintenance of facilities, and I haven't identified that, I'm just using that as a hypothetical. Clearly, that job description is different than this job description. This simply establishes a position, the act with certain responsibilities. Certainly, other people are, encouraged to apply for the position if they so wish. But I don't think you can assign these responsibilities to something with a separate job description.
Is it safe to say that the creation of this position does not necessarily mean that it will be filled immediately?
It will unlikely be filled immediately. It would be
so is there a good possibility that my concern could play into this?
I would think they would, Councilor.
Okay, I believe in the creation of this position, but I don't think anyone should be hired when we're looking at the possibility of layoffs. Because I looked at the description, I looked at by the way, I don't know who would want this job. I mean, when you look at this vast city and all of the violations that exist, this is going to be a tough job for anyone to do. But I'm not so sure that people can't be trained to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I would hope that the position itself that I will support creating doesn't get filled, although I can't tell you not to do that, until we have a grasp on the budget and what effect it'll have on our existing personnel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez? Okay. Anything further on this? Okay. What's the wish of the council? We have a motion to approve
Move approval.
by Councilor Donahue, motion to approve, and second by Councilor Broderick. Roll call.
Counselor Armin Mercia,
Yes, subject to the caveats.
Counselor Rita Mercia,
No, but I could be persuaded with the caveat.
I don't have either one of those categories.
Cheers.
Well, I'm going to have to say no at this point.
Counselor Milonazo,
Yes.
Counselor Ramirez.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick,
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Donahue.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott, Mayor Martin.
Yes.
7 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absent.
7 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absent. The position is established. Okay. The next item is a loan order. Loan order amending the loan order for the arena ice surface subsurface system to borrow $1,600,000 for the purpose of financing the purchase and installation of an ice surfacing system at the Songus Arena, including all costs incidental related thereto, by amending the loan order passed January 23, 2007, to read as follows. It is ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell by a 2/3 vote as follows. Ordered that the sum of $1,600,000 is appropriated for the purpose of financing the purchase and installation of an ice surfacing system at the Songus Arena, including all costs incidental and related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the city manager, is authorized to borrow $1,600,000 and issue bonds or notes therefore under General Laws, Chapter 44, or any other establishing authority, that the city manager is authorized to take any action necessary to carry out the project, and that the treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify any or all of the bonds under General Laws, Chapter 44A, and to provide such information and execute such documents as such board may require for these purposes. Order recommended and introduced by Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. This matter is to be referred to a public hearing on May 8th. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this is going to a public hearing, and I won't take a position prior to the public hearing, but Mr. Manager, there is some information that I would request, if possible, that you could try and obtain for the council in advance of the public hearing. And some of those issues relate to some of the things the council has already discussed here on the floor, but let me just list a few of the things if we can get information. Number one, I would like to know what the current subsidy is costing the city in terms of our current arrangement with the Devils. In other words, we know that it's a money loser for the city, and I want to know how much we're losing by our subsidizing of the Devils team vis-a-vis the lease that the city did with the Devils. Number two, I would like to know if we can find out from the university through the acting chancellor, through Dana Skinner, through whoever has the authority to advise the city what are the plans that the university has with regard to the hockey team. Are they prepared to commit to a long-term arrangement to keep the hockey team here at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, as opposed to moving it to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, as their chair has stated publicly? And so I would want, at least as a courtesy and a commitment to the city, that the university indicate to us in a very formal way that they intend to keep this hockey team here. I think it's unacceptable for us to be in the dark on this. Number three, I'm losing count. So number three, I would also ask that we receive from, and I don't know how we do this, but I'm interested to know if there is the ability of the university to share in this bond or in any way cost share with us on this burden. Now, I know they don't own the facility, But the Arena Commission was established to show a joint ownership. They put up the lion's share of the money to build the arena. The land was provided by the university. The city has taken ownership. There may be a way under the vehicle of creating the Arena and Civic Commission that the university can and should share in this burden. After all, this was a decision that clearly was a mistake that the Arena Commission made years ago. It was the wrong choice, not to fault anybody, but who would expect a costly system like this to fail, which actually failed 5 or 6 years into the life of this system. It's been band-aided ever since. So, you know, that was a mistake, and I think the taxpayers of the city of Lowell shouldn't be the only ones sharing this burden or bearing this burden. And so I would like to know in advance, is there the vehicle, is there the possibility, is it legal for the university to in some way contribute? And contribute by way of the additional cost, the $600,000. I don't know why that would be unreasonable. So we can find that out in advance, because quite frankly, all these are very important parts to me in terms of whatever decision I make at a public hearing to further, you know, burden the taxpayers of the city of Lowell. And I think if we can get those types of, that information, I know it's short order. I do understand the time crunch that we're under. We've been well aware of this for a long time. In fact, we were aware of this when the lease was being discussed last year, that the ice was going to have to be replaced, and it was not going to be an easy process. So, two other pieces of information, Mr. Manager. One is, can we find out from, again, the Devils, any interest in trying to help us out with the cost here by what we asked a year ago, ticket surcharge, something that can be applied toward the cost of this bond? And then lastly, you know, can we also get what it's costing us to keep this system going year-round? Because I know the utility costs are sky high. So I think we have to weigh all those factors. But this is this is more than just this one bond that we're asking to take on, and I think it feeds into the bigger picture, the subsidy for the team, I mean, the professional hockey team. You know, I think we have to put all these pieces together and really come to terms with what this is costing. So. Again, I'm not going to state anything, a position on the public hearing, but that information I think is critical in order to come to an informed decision at the public hearing.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, if you could just add to that list the findings or the results of the recent Arena Commission meeting as regards to this issue. As the primary oversight board, I'd like to get an idea of what they're thinking before we act on it as well. And if you know those and you can advise us tonight, be great. If you want to wait until the public hearing, that's also acceptable.
Well, every councilor has their hand up, so I don't know if you want to hear from the councilors first. You want to have the manager address these one at a time as they come up. Next, I'm going in order that I saw. Councilor Caulfield's next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to support Councilor Donahue's feelings or questions pertaining to this issue. It's absolutely, and I believe all my colleagues feel the same, it's absolutely maddening and frustrating. I know how hard the city council worked to build that facility, make sure it was state-of-the-art, and so forth, and the architect, someone let us know. There's no doubt about it. That ice surface failed in every arena in New England, New York, and the East Coast. So the question I think Councilor Donahue had was to find out the liability issue on that and come back with some answers for us. And it is so frustrating that some people didn't pay attention to it. So.
Councilor Rita Mercier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did support the $1 million to bond it, but we're going above and beyond now, and I think it's a very expensive proposition to keep going up, and I'm thinking the $600,000 isn't probably going to cut it. It's probably going to be another $1 million. And I'd like to add it to the Donahue list, Councilor Donahue list. And really, that's true. We need these answers. I know that we all want hockey here. We want many venues here. But at what cost are we willing to keep them here? And I know that we have a 2-year contract. We have 1 year left. I know we have to honor that contract. Now, I'm understanding that there's 17 home games within a season, and I'm thinking, does 17 home games equal $1.6 to $2 million? So I'm wondering if it's possible, if they stay for the second year of the contract and we spend all that money, how could we probably put them somewhere else if we don't finish, fixing this ice? So my question would be, is it possible we can talk to the Devils if it's going to be too expensive and say, can we find out if we can lease a space somewhere else, and how much would that cost us? It'd probably
Mr.
be
Manager?
cheaper than $2 million, I'm hoping.
If I could just respond to that, and then I'll respond to a number of other. The UMass Lowell team played 17 games. The Devils play 41 games.
41.
So it's a total of 58.
Okay.
But I'll respond to a number of these issues a little bit.
We don't have an obligation to put UMass Lowell hockey somewhere else, do we? If we don't fix the ice, how do we do that?
I'd have to, Council, I'd have to research
Could we check that out and
arrangement. I know
see?
that there is an arrangement with the university. I believe that they have relocation entitlement as well. But
See if they, and a very important subject that Councilor Donahue talked about was, see if they can partner with us. They did to build it in the first place. Could we continue that partnership? That's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercier?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Let me tell you, I'm glad this vote isn't tonight, because there is no way, without answers that Councilor Eileen Donahue was requesting, that I could vote for this. At the last meeting, we had also discussed the possibility of an option of delaying this so that we'll know exactly where the Devils are coming from, A, B, where the university is coming from, and C, whether they're willing to assume part of this debt so it's not placed on the taxpayers. Because that arena is costing the city of Lowell an awful lot of money. And if we add $1.6 million just to provide ice to people who are not going to be skating here, I think we should redirect our activity to get some shows, a number of venues that could make an awful lot more money that wouldn't cost us $1.6 million. So that other option, Mr. Manager, of delaying, I hope is still a possibility, because I really, at this point, can't commit ourselves, as we all know, one way or the other, because it'll be a public hearing. But I'm looking forward to the answers to all of the questions that Councilor Donahue has raised, because that's going to weigh very heavily in my decision on this item. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess mine is a little bit combined with the rest of them. Councilor Eileen Donahue hit most of them, but Mr. Manager, I thought someone had made a motion and was sent to you, referred to you, to meet with the Arena Commission in an evaluation of the performance of the arena and what's being done over there in terms of shows, what the best use would be down the road. Can you give us a status on that as well? Because I think that answer may play into whether we decide to spend $1.6 million. If there's a better use for it, maybe we don't do it. So if you could, I don't know if it, I mean, I know that we're putting you under the gun here. You got a couple things to do. So that was one issue. And also, well, now I lost it, but I think they've probably mostly been asked. But essentially, I mean, the information they asked for, and I mean, this is going to be a tough vote. It's an awful lot of money, and we're not guaranteed that it's only 1.6. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Milanazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Obviously, we do need all of this information, Mr. Manager, to make a intelligent decision. But I, too, picking up on a comment that Councilor Caulfield made relative to liability, I think we should look at liability then and now. I mean, go back to the original architect, engineer, and Sasaki, who designed, I believe, the redo, if you will, of the ice. So again, I don't know why we have errors and omissions in these contracts if we don't, through our law department, go after them, because, I mean, clearly they're off by 60% of the bid proposal or the bid estimate, and if we're at 1.6 million and they said it's going to be about $1 million, we should try to recover some of that, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. City Manager, I think, has a number of points here.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, councilors, try to respond to some of these, and obviously I don't have all the answers for you tonight on all of these, but I wanted to, it was my intention to give you sort of an update tonight, knowing that you weren't going to be voting on this tonight, we're just going to be marking it up for a public hearing. I have been meeting regularly with the Arena Commission to review this project from the moment I came on several months ago. I, too, was shocked that the system seemed to be failing so soon after it was constructed. Looking at the reports and operating under the assumption that all the due diligence had been done, obviously there wasn't a lot we could do with the ice surface during the hockey season, but we had to move forward in order to get the bids out and get the RFP out and get the bids in, so that we could move quickly on this. And I was not pleased that we'd be having to spend $1 million, and I was, as all of you, very displeased that it seemed to increase in price up to $1.6 million. And I, too, was very disappointed in the performance of our architect and engineers in being so off the mark, apparently off the mark with the cost of this. I did have a meeting with the Devils today. We had a very frank discussion regarding the marketing and their performance in the arena, and I'll be getting some additional reports back to you on that in the very near future, as we move forward. The subsidy is, as I calculate it, and it's difficult to exactly quantify, but it appears the staffing requirements that we have under that contract cost the city about $250,000 a year. We receive in revenue about $150,000 a year, so the subsidy would appear to be $100,000. However, the agreement that was structured also, it's a 2-year deal with the option of the Devils to extend it by 2 years at their sole discretion. That agreement also provides them all of the advertising revenue as well as all of the concessions at all of their events. So there are some major cost implications for that. But we did have a very, as I say, frank discussion today, and we're going to continue to talk over the next couple of weeks regarding that. And as I say, I'll have some information for the council moving forward. I've also had discussions with the UMass, the athletic director, as well as the incoming chancellor, and talked about their commitment. I do have a meeting, as I believe the mayor does, this Monday with a task force that's been set up to discuss the future of UMass Lowell hockey, we want to meet with them and find out, give certainly our perspective on the value of the hockey program to the city, but also get some commitment from them as to what their future plans are. I think it's going to be difficult to get that until, or their firm commitment until sometime in June, from what I'm told. But certainly we'll be trying to do that. The year-round costs, I believe we've estimated the cost of running that system throughout the summer is about $60,000 a year. I would also tell you that by canceling all of the events of this summer, it's about $300,000 of cost to the city. By canceling all the potential events that could be taking place there. Liability I'll stay away from right now. That's a legal matter that I think we need to look at very carefully. Relocation costs are something that we'd have to look at, and I'm not quite sure where we would be able to put them, either one of those teams, if we continue to have them here at the arena. And as for other uses, that is part of an ongoing analysis of, obviously, with the UMass Lowell there, as well as for those 17 dates, plus the 41 dates of the Devils, it prohibits us from putting a lot of other uses there, which is something that we're looking at very carefully, and I'll be meeting with SMG later this week to go over some ideas that we have along those lines. But let me give you a sort of an update. As I said, I was very concerned about the $1 million and very concerned about the $1.6 million, but there wasn't much we could do with that in terms of looking at some options until this hockey season was over, which just recently ended. We had a very interesting meeting with the Arena Commission yesterday, and I asked for a number of options to be considered. Perhaps a different type of ice surface, perhaps some other construction methods that could be used, including putting the. There were other members of the Arena Commission that were interested in this as well, of putting a new ice system on top of the existing slab to reduce some of the demolition costs and construction costs. We looked at that. But we also received some information from people that are involved with the operation of the system that led us to believe that there may be some other options with regards to making the system continue to work over not just a one-year period of time, but a little bit longer period of time without going out and building a new system. Unfortunately, this possibility wasn't available to us until the hockey season ended. We are essentially going out and melting parts of the ice and checking the pipes that we can get at to identify whether, in fact, the system is in a state that it needs to be replaced. That obviously was going to be something that we were going to need to do, or I wanted to do before I actually signed a contract. So that work is taking place this week. The Arena Commission, I asked the Arena Commission not to take an official position at this time. Let's wait until we get that information back, so we will be meeting again next week. At which time that information will be available to us. Next Tuesday, we'll be doing that. So I'm hopeful that we can be in a position that this system will not need to be replaced at this point in time, that we will be able to make it through. I can't promise that, but that's what I would like to see happen so that we get a better sense of what's happening with the Devils, as well as what other options are available to us for use of that venue, and then finally what ideas are out there for UMass Lowell, and how, if they are going to stay, how we can work together and to make that program more successful and advantageous for the city. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. I've tried to hit many of the topics that you've raised. They're the same topics and concerns that I've had. I think we'll have a much better handle on this. I keep on saying this, but we will have a much better handle on this in the next week, and certainly with regard to the Devils within the next couple of weeks to a month.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last bit sounds like good news, potential repair. Is there any idea, and I suppose the answer is no at this point, in terms of what that cost may be?
We don't have that. We don't have that answer yet. But obviously, it would obviously be much less than what we're talking about. If it's just a case of getting it through another year, it becomes more complex because we did have the $300,000 loss this year, a potential $300,000 loss. To put it off another year just so we can take another $300,000 loss of revenue next year wouldn't seem to make a lot of sense. If we are looking at this, it has to be something that's going to get us through a number of years. But also, we need to know where we stand with the Devils and where we stand with UMass Lowell. UMass Lowell has indicated that they want to stay and have a very viable and active program. And I think that if that's something that's doable, that's something that makes sense for the city. The Devils' situation is a little bit different, but we need to have further discussions on that within the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. We're going to take a vote on this May 8th, public hearing.
It's expected,
Right.
yes.
And my question is, if everything turns out in a positive way, Mr. Manager, and we can keep that ice surface and work with it, what are we going to do with the bond?
Rescind it.
Rescind it. Okay, that's what I want to know.
Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, I not to belabor the point, but I understand that maybe UMass Lowell wants to keep the hockey team. I'm not so certain it's in their hands, and I hearken back to when they put in the artificial turf over there for the football field, and we all went for the opening. I don't think they played one game there. They yanked the football team out of there. They spent a fortune on that field. They did. It wasn't the city, but, and then they took the football program out to Amherst, and we have no assurance that they won't do the same thing again, and that's fine. They can decide to spend their money that way. All I'm saying is, I think we need a lot more than just UMass Lowell is interested in keeping hockey. We all know that. I'm more interested in what UMass Amherst is going to say and what the powers that be are going to say, because my understanding is their position is, and what I've read in the newspaper, is that they're losing money, significant money, over $1 million a year on this program as well as the Amherst program, and that's the main reason for combining it. And they have this Mullen Center out there that they want to have be their flagship hockey team. Now, we don't have any control over that, nor do I have any confidence that this campus has any control over that. But when we're being asked to foot the bill, they owe us an assurance. And to say we can't get back to you right away, it's not acceptable.
Thank you. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to suspend the rules and allow former city manager Jim Sullivan to speak at the podium.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Rita Mercier, second by Councilor Armin Mercier. Any objection to suspension of the rules? Mr. Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to City Council. The last time I was here at the City Council meeting, I was here to oppose the original $1 million proposal. And at that time, I had a bet with one of the city councilors, who will be left unnamed, that you would be back here looking for more money because you couldn't possibly do it for $1 million. And so I bet a dinner with that city councilor, and I will waive the rights to collect that debt. I don't want to name the city councilor, but we did have that bet because I just didn't think it was possible. The plain fact is that this makes no sense whatsoever. As a result, at the last meeting when I was here, I asked the city council to provide me with the information on the Devils contract, and nobody was able to do that. So as a result, I went to the city solicitor's office, and I was charged $10 to get a copy of the Devils contract, which I have. The interesting thing is that the Devils contract says that there are 40 home games, and maybe there's 41 because they do have something about a professional team playing or a team scheduled for the regular National Hockey League, I guess, at one point. And there's 17 home games, as you know, for the university. The price is $3,750 per game, and for 40 games, that comes to $150,000. So that is what people have talked about as the revenue source. However, the contract is substantially different than that. The contract requires, for example, required commission staffing, required by the city for the Devils. And it will be necessary to provide 7 ticket sellers. By the way, the city is paying for this. 7 ticket sellers, 5 ticket takers, 14 ushers, 1 usher supervisor, 1 event supervisor, 6 security staff, and 1 ice resurfacer operator, 1 sound technician, 3 ice crew, and 3 cleaning crew during the game, and 3 cleaning crew after the game. You are paying for that out of the $3,750 per game. In addition to that, by the way, police and fire, not more than 4 City of Lowell police officers, and 1 firefighter will be paid by the commission to protect. In addition to that, the Devils get 100% of the concession rights. In addition to that, in this particular contract, they get 100% of the pouring rights, which I assume means the beer and booze that's sold. So it seems to me, from the standpoint of the Devils, I would not want to abandon this particular contract for anything. From the standpoint of the city, I'd be so happy to get rid of it that it wouldn't be funny. They have 1 more year to go on their contract, and you don't know what's going to happen with them during that year. But in addition to that, by the way, they also get all of the advertising rights. The city is required in the contract to clean the advertising things that the Devils collect the money on. How this agreement has ever took place, I don't know. But the plain fact is that this makes no sense whatsoever. You lose money. The arena loses $1,200,000 a year operational costs, according to your own figures, by the way, in the bond prospectus for the parking garage. It loses $1,200,000, not counting the debt and interest on the $4 million that the city put up. So that as far as the arena is concerned, it's a loss leader. My suggestion to you is if the university wants it, give it to them. Let them handle it, because the university plays 17 home games. And as you know, the headline said they may not even have any hockey whatsoever. Then I read that somebody said, well, if we won't fix the ice, we'll bring in an arena football team. Fine. They might play 10 games a year, 10 home games, because they only would play 20 games total, 10 home and 10 away. So why on earth would an arena football team make any sense for the arena? It doesn't. The arena is a loss leader. It's not going to disappear. In the University of Lowell, at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, run their own hockey league, and they run their own hockey facility. University of Massachusetts at Dartmouth does the same thing. In Lowell, we pay for them to handle that particular facility. Nobody's going to suggest, I would assume if they took it over, they'd have their own hockey team, they'd use it for university functions, they would be delighted to bring in concerts and activities that should be taking place because of the fact that it would be a revenue source for them owning their own facility. And if I were the chancellor of the University of Massachusetts at Lowell, I think I would welcome the idea of expanding and getting an additional cost to the plant of $28 million, because this particular facility was put up mostly by the money from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, $4 million by the university, and $4 million from the city. That's the total city stake. And now you're talking about spending $1.6 million to fix the ice, and you're talking about a loss of an annual meeting of $1,200,000. Financially, you can't afford it. You may do it, but you can't afford it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Anything further? Okay, all those in favor of referring this matter to a public hearing on May 8th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The matter is referred to a public hearing on May 8th.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I wonder, in the spirit of cooperation, if we could take up Councilor Caulfield's motion relative to the tennis courts, so that the people who are here to speak on it would be given an opportunity not to necessarily stay here all night while we debate the rest of the meeting.
Second.
It's a motion to suspend the rules to allow that motion to be taken up out of context.
All right, motion to suspend the rules to take up Councilor Caulfield's motion by Councilor Armin Mercier, second by Councilor Rita Mercier. Any objection to the suspension of the rules? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The rules are suspended. Go to the motion filed by Councilor Caulfield. The City Council requests the city manager provide a complete explanation of the leasing of tennis courts at Shed Park. There are some people registered to speak. Matthew Gendron. Just give us your name and address, please. Address, I guess we have your name.
Hi, my name's Matthew Gendron. I live at 20 Clark Road in Lowell. I'm a 17-year-old junior at Lowell High School, and I've been a member of the tennis team for the last 3 years. Just 9 months ago, I was in this very chamber because you were giving me and several other volunteers the Spotlight Award for delivering a youth tennis program to the city through the Greater Lowell Boys and Girls Club. And tonight I come here because I fear that this program is in danger because our permit for Shed Park has been revoked. When I was younger, I used to take lessons at Shed Park through a city-sponsored program. But those programs were discontinued several years ago. 2 years ago, the Boys and Girls Club saw this need and decided to develop a youth tennis program. This program has grown into a great success. We've had kids from all over Lowell participate in our program. All the volunteers live in Lowell. They include ranked United States Tennis Association players, Lowell High tennis coaches and players, and also tennis enthusiasts trying to help the sport grow. This program has been a great and productive tennis clinic for the past 2 years. It runs 1 day a week for about 6 weeks. I think it would be a shame if we could not continue to grow further at Shed Park again this year. I'm also concerned that the people of Lowell will not be able to go to the park anytime they not be able to go to the park and play tennis whenever they want this summer. I don't know if you realize how many people go down to the courts and play on a regular basis. I often go down there with friends and family to play. There's also a group of men who go in the morning and also in the evening. None of us will have that opportunity to do that this summer. I think Mr. Leclerc runs a great program. He's a nice man and is a great tennis teacher. I was a student of his for many years at Next Champions, and I have learned a lot. However, I'm not sure that public courts are the right place to run a business. Thank you for your attention.
Nice job. Well, you look like your father.
Thank you, Mr. Gendron. Jennifer Carey?
I'm Jennifer Carey. I live Trail Lane, Easton, Lowell, Mass. I have been a resident for 38 years. I've lived here. I've grown up on the courts in Lowell. I could speak with many hats right now. First, as a resident of Lowell, I've played on those courts when we had the T-shirts made up, Shed Park courts with the cracks on them. We played through them. We had the rules with the cracks. And that's where you learn tennis and you hung out. Today, when I was coming back from Drake, where my daughter takes dance, I drove by McPherson Park, 2 big softball games going on, 3 tennis courts with people on their skateboards and bikes. Then I went down to drop my daughter off at Shed Park, where there were Little League baseball games going on. Out of the 8 courts, 6 of them were being used. All 6 down the 6 courts, 3 of which are going to be leased out this summer. I have played there. I have been a coach at Lowell High for 13 years. I know what the activity down at Shed Park is. When you build it, they come. Well, McPherson has 3 empty courts. Let them use the 3 empty courts, and maybe they'll come there to show more life and excitement in the city of Lowell. I would not feel comfortable going down there and telling my daughter, who's 7.5, we can't play because those 3 courts are being used right now by people from Andover, from Lowell, that are paying maybe. I just don't think that's right. These are public courts. It's not for a private industry. I'm also speaking as a tennis professional who worked in the Parks and Rec program for Mike Scaff. That program, we had 100 deep. And the program now with the Boys and Girls Club that we have used the courts for and had graciously had the permit to service the city kids of Lowell that were bused down to Shed Park to use the courts from 9 to 12, 1 day a week all summer long, are now still at the Boys and Girls Club every Saturday with Matt Gendron, who's doing a service learning grant for the city of Lowell through Lowell High School, which our mission statement is commitment to excellence in everything we do. Academics, activities, and citizenship. I require my players to give back to the city of Lowell by volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club program during the summer. 7 of our students were recognized here last fall for the outstanding work for actually kind of basically pinch hitting for the Parks and Rec program's tennis program that has fallen apart. And now all of a sudden, we have someone from the private industry coming in saying, we can offer this to Lowell. We have been offering it. If you have not stepped out of your office, if you have not ever gone down to the park to watch the tennis courts, there's activity there. We don't need someone private coming in. If you want someone private, come to speak to the people and the citizens of Lowell. Within my family alone, I could run a tennis program, okay? Right through the city. We have had past coaches that have offered to do a Parks and Rec program for the city of Lowell, free. We have the resources without having any promises of, we'll give back to the city. What more do you want but your citizens of your city, the teenagers of your city, to give back to the city they're living in, taking classes in, and going to come back and say, I worked in the city of Lowell as a volunteer for a tennis program. And my daughter, who is playing tennis now, when we were out there on Sunday for about an hour, she loves going down there and playing. But again, there's going to be a day that one of you will receive a phone call. And I have to tell you, I'm a taxpayer. I've been living here for 38 years, and I was told I could not play on my own tennis courts that my tax money is paid for. I hope we have some answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Victoria Hayden.
Victoria Hayden, 101 Dinsmore Street, Lowell, Mass. Good evening, everybody. And before I start, I just want to say that this is nothing against Mr. Leclerc. I have spent thousands of dollars through his program for myself and my children. But I am a resident of Lowell, I'm a resident of Belvedere, I'm a friend of Shed Park, I'm a tennis player, and I'm a tennis player and I am a city taxpayer, which brings me very quickly to my point. I am appalled at the fact that this city is trying to make meager money from the lease of public tennis courts at Shed Park. Shed Park is where I learned to play tennis, spent hours on the courts, taught my daughter to play weekly on a regular basis, and had to wait 1 hour for a court 2 weeks ago. I hear people saying courts are underutilized at Shed, but I have not seen the data to prove this. I have, however, seen with my own eyes the courts being used by residents of Lowell of all ages at all times. The points are being made that Lowell Rec needs a boost in the arm. I don't disagree with that. However, this is not the way to go about giving it a boost. We can look at our soccer and lacrosse programs to see examples how feeder recreation programs should be set up in the city and how they work effectively. Currently, we have a soccer program that didn't exist maybe 10 years ago, and now there are cuts at the high school because of that feeder program. Likewise, lacrosse, cuts at the high school because of a feeder program. So programs do work that are not privatized. And let's not forget that we are a city. It has recently been argued that this type of program runs in Acton, Andover, Concord, etc. But the last time I looked around, Lowell is not one of these towns, nor do we profess to be or want to be. I am told that the city will make a profit of $10,000. $10,000? This is not a fair trade-off to those 70, 80, and 90-year-old men that Jennifer referred to, that Matt referred to, that want to play when they want to play. It's not a fair trade-off to my daughter and I. It's not a fair trade-off to the 2 boys who ride a mile on their bikes with their rackets tucked under the seats of their bikes, wanting to play and being told that they have to wait an hour or more for a court. $10,000. If you people sitting here want $10,000 in your coffer, I will raise $20,000 for you by September through a fundraiser. $10,000 is a joke. To trade off those courts for the residents of this city, for the taxpayers of this city. So in closing, I just want to say that for those of you who don't know what tennis looks like at Shed Park, spend a day there, spend a week there. Meet these gentlemen, meet these kids, and you'll realize that leasing these courts out to a privatized individual is a big mistake for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I believe I was at a neighborhood meeting at City Hall, I believe it was last Wednesday evening or Thursday. And I told Manager Lynch that I had filed this motion. We have some beautiful parks in the city, some extremely large. The Judge Hadley family willed Hadley Field to the city of Lowell for the good of the public use. The Shed family also willed that large parcel of land in Belvedere, we all know it as Shed Park, for the public use and the public good. It was never intended to lease a portion of it, sell a portion of it. It cannot be done. I don't know how many developers in this city would love to build condominiums at Hadley Field, but you know what? They can't do it. Land was willed to the city for recreational use, and so was in Shed Park. Mr. Manager, has a lease been signed with?
No, Council, this is not a lease. This is a permit that was issued by the Board of Parks.
A permit?
Correct.
And what about the citizens who reside in this city? They're going to take the second row, third row, who should be using those tennis courts. And I'm sticking up for the constituents, the taxpayers in the city who fund that park, who should be using it first, above and beyond anyone else. They are the ones who should be utilizing Hadley Field, Shed Park, McGuire Field, and so forth. Those are the people who should be using the park, not someone who wants to come in here and get a permit to give free tennis lessons and turn it into a profit. There's no doubt in my mind that the gentleman will do that. But I just, there has to be a solution to this, Mr. Manager. You have to, the citizens of this city come first. The taxpayers come first. And the Lowell Boys and Girls Club have been given tennis lessons for decades. Decades. And I think it should continue that way.
Well, I believe that the Boys and Girls Club program is 3 years old, correct? Correct. So, and we are working with the Boys and Girls Club on.
But the gist of what I'm trying to get across here, Mr. Mayor, just 3 tennis courts.
Yes.
That are tied up. Sally and Jimmy and Barbara and Billy from the city. If they want to go play tennis, they can't because someone else has the permit and they can't use their own tennis courts. That's the issue. I'm not the only one that feels this way. Believe me. There's many people who feel that way. And I'm looking for a compromise here. I'm looking for a solution to let the people in this city utilize those tennis courts more than anyone else. Those are the people who should be using them, not somebody from Acton or Concord or from suburbia. So that's the gist of my motion. I hope my colleagues will certainly weigh in on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Caulfield asked a question I had about whether it's a lease situation or a permit, and you answered that. And the follow-up question I have for that is, what jurisdiction or authority does the council have in determination of who gets a permit? My understanding is we set policy, which we did, and which is on the website in terms of what permit fees are and the like. But the Board of Parks issues the permits. Now, it's unfortunate, I think this was brought up, I believe, by Council Eileen Donahue a few weeks ago when it was brought to her attention, and I think we were told at the time that it's 3 courts out of 8, shouldn't interfere with other programs and other enjoyment of the park. You know, I think it's unfortunate. I'm not a tennis player, so I'm not aware of the activity level over there. I think we're in a very unfortunate situation, but I don't know, Mr. Manager, through you to the solicitor's office, what, if anything, can we do if permits have been issued and we're in the situation we're in? First off, do we have the authority or jurisdiction over the permits? And if we do, is there anything we can do now to change that?
Mr. Solicitor, you have a view on that?
Yes, certainly. First of all, as you said, it is a permitting process that has been established by the Parks and Recreation Commission through under the auspices of the Board of Parks. The general authority to govern use of recreational facilities in the city is by the city code in broad language given to the Board of Parks. That code was established many years ago. So to answer Councilor Broderick's question, it may be that it would be the Board of Parks that would have to address this and not the City Council in the event that some action was indicated with respect to a permit. But permits are, in a sense, a license. A license is for temporary use. It doesn't give control of the courts to the permittee. It is, in essence, something that can be terminated, as with any license. So I would say that it would be up to the Board of Parks to make a determination or to make a decision with respect to this, and not the council.
Okay. I mean, it seems clear that the issue really is giving permits to private parties or for-profit businesses as opposed to a non-profit. I mean, nobody complains that they can't go and use the baseball field because Shed Park Baseball is having a game and they have a permit. So, I mean, I think it's something we need to look at further. If we establish some policy on a motion I made several months ago. Maybe we can look at establishing a policy that deals with who we're going to lease, give licenses to or permits to in the future. And I don't know, I would hope that the parties could maintain some type of open communication and see if there's some type of resolution that can help this situation, the current situation. But I think that we ought to establish, if the situation is that the Board of Parks is giving the permits and we just establish policy, then I think we need to decide what that policy is going to be for the future. And maybe something we can be done. Mr. Manager, I don't know if you've spoken to the parties and you have an update.
Well, Mr. Manager?
If I may, I have had a chance to speak to a number of the parties involved, and I'm not quite sure where to begin here, other than to say that Councilor Donahue asked a question about this several meetings ago, and I responded that 3 of the 8 courts would be, a permit was being granted to 3 of the 8 courts to an organization, and clearly it is a for-profit organization. I think it should be pointed out that the organization was referred to us by a group of citizens here in the city that wanted to expand recreational opportunities in the city, and it does feed into what we're trying to do across the board of getting more recreation activities here in the city for our youth. The idea behind this is that, and it is something, it's a concept that's used in a number of communities, both urban and suburban, where an entity comes in and provides low-cost or no-cost recreation programs within the community. In this particular case, the idea was to give a permit, and the Board of Parks made the decision that they would limit it to 3 courts for certain hours of the week, in certain hours on certain days, and then they required that there be a fee attached to that. And we do have an estimate that it's going to be about $10,000 to $15,000, and that but a requirement of that would be that there have to be free lessons provided to the youth. So in this particular case, it would be Mondays and Fridays, and there'd be about 7.5 hours of free lessons provided to the youth of the city. This is something that the city obviously can't afford to do on its own. We do recognize, however, that the Boys and Girls Club has been offering this program, and certainly we endorse it because it has benefits for both the youth of the community that are receiving the lessons, as well as the youth of the community that are giving the lessons. And unfortunately, there was a snafu in terms of the permitting, but we've worked to, and I have talked to Commissioner Bellegarde about this, of making sure that the Boys and Girls Club does have courts for this summer. And they have courts that we've now set aside for them at Callery Park. So, we're really expanding the amount of tennis that will be taking place in the community this year, because there'll be the lessons at Callery Park provided by the Boys and Girls Club, and there'll be the lessons provided at Shed Park by the particular organization that has obtained the permits from the Board of Parks. We are working with Mr. Bellegarde is working with the Lowell Housing Authority as well as the LRTA to facilitate transportation for youth from around the city to get to Shed Park on Mondays and Fridays so that they can take advantage of this program. And likewise, we'll be working again with the Boys and Girls Club as a partner in all of their programs that they're doing throughout the city. So we're trying to really balance everything out so that everyone is satisfied in some way. And again, this is the first time I think we've done this, certainly in the city, but it does have some potential for really expanding what we do. In other communities, it's not unusual to have an organization come in and, as I say, make low-cost or no-cost programs available in tennis, in basketball, baseball, softball, lacrosse, soccer, and so on. And these programs are extremely successful. And that's, I know, in going out and talking to the neighborhood organizations, that's something that many of the parents have asked me to really put a focus on. And they, in fact, have pointed to these other communities and say, why can't we be like those communities? And so that's certainly a charge that I put to Mr. Bellegarde, but the Board of Parks, as I said, received this application for a permit, and they've granted it. They have the authority to do that. They endorse what the direction of trying to do more for the youth recreation programs, and I think it has the potential to be very successful. At the same time, allowing for continued residential use. I should point out too that everybody, to say that the I understand Councilor Caulfield's position that those courts belong to the people of the city of Lowell. Obviously, not everyone is a tennis player in the city of Lowell, but they help pay for the maintenance of those tennis courts and the construction of those tennis courts at one point in time. And that's the notion behind a user fee for the use of those, is that even if you're not a tennis player, those tennis courts provide a benefit. They provide a public benefit in terms of those that like to play tennis and can go walk on there, and they provide a benefit to the residents of the city who will see some type of collection of revenue as a result of that. So it does benefit everybody in the city in doing so, and I think it does have a potential to be a real win-win. I should also point out that I had an opportunity to meet with Victoria Hayden as well as Bob Hayden yesterday to discuss this matter, and I think they made some very good points, and I would hope that those discussions can continue. They've indicated an interest in building up a youth tennis program throughout the city that similar to the youth soccer program. I think that's a wonderful effort. But we've also received, Mr. Bellegarde and myself have received numerous calls and contact from residents throughout the city who are very excited with the prospect of this program providing access to some top quality tennis lessons, as well as the tennis lessons provided by the Boys and Girls Club.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, let me just say, as the chairperson of Parks and Recreation, for the record, this issue never came before us. I knew nothing about this until I heard rumblings about it, and Councilor Donahue brought it up last week, I believe, and we did have, since I heard rumbling, I did check into it, and this is the most perfect example of there are two sides to the picture. There are two sides to every story, and right on the surface, when I heard free tennis lessons for children 6 to high school age, I said, wow, this is great. I said, this is unbelievable that children, young adults will have an opportunity to learn a particular sport that they probably wouldn't have the money to pay for. And I thought that was great. But the more I checked into it, the more I had some reservations about what actually is going on here. I didn't hear the other side. And I think, for the record, everybody's heart is in the right place. We want the youth to be off the street. We want them to be on a tennis court. And when you look at the geographics of a city and you see tennis courts at Hadley Field that for years were left unattended, and where could we put a skateboard park? We substituted one entity for another, and it worked out very well. And I think that we have people here today that are saying there may be 8 tennis courts at Shed Park, but they're always utilized, where I think there's 2 tennis courts up there on Thorndike Street near the Rogers School. I believe there's still 2 tennis courts there. I never ever see anybody there. And then we hear that there's tennis courts at McPherson's Park, and they're not really utilized. So maybe we can make a swap somewhere. But then again, I'm thinking, are we in the business to help promote a private entity for profit? Because when I look on the website of the City of Lowell website and I see the link to this person's business, never ever do I see anything mentioned about free tennis lessons for our children, and that bothers me. I see a brochure here. It's talking about the summer clinic. It's telling all about it, ages 5 through 17, and the fees are below. That's very misleading. I don't know what's free around here. Then I see an ad in the paper tonight. That's all wonderful. I'm looking for something free to alert our people. I know they have a right to advertise. I'm sure the Sun and Mike LaFleur would love to have the money and the advertise to pay for his salary, but I don't see the word free here anywhere. I don't see anything about that. But I'm concerned about the website linking his link, and there's nothing free in the website link. I don't see anything here. It's all about free, and it's all about for our children, and yet I don't see any promotional thing for that, only for his business, and that troubles me a little bit. I don't know that I want to be in a city and I know we're looking for many ways of bringing in money, and I know that Victoria Hatem can raise $20,000. I almost feel like propositioning her after to do it, but here's the thing. Are we here as councilors to subsidize private businesses? We're not Concord. We're not, I know you're trying, I'm trying to stretch this, but I don't know that I want John Smith Soccer Company coming in teaching our children free how to play soccer, but in the 11th hour over here, we're going to charge you over there. I don't know that I want to do such a thing. And I don't know if I'm hearing that maybe we can break out of this, or, gee, I like to have something free, and I know we have to give something, but I'm thinking, can we put them somewhere else or whatever? And I think that if I say nothing else, I think it should have come before the council in some way, before someone went off and said, yes, go for a permit or whatever. We heard nothing about it. We were the last to find out any of this, and I feel bad for the people here, but I think I'd like to suspend the rules if they have anything to say. I don't know.
They said it.
Well, we have counselors here who haven't been
All
heard
right,
from
then.
that really have been very patient.
Yeah.
Well, let them speak, but I'd like to suspend the rules if these people have anything to say.
Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. Here's one of the examples of when you suspend the rules for an emergency purpose. People don't always have notice. And I hate doing that. I hate bringing up things that aren't on the agenda. But I did ask to suspend the rules a few weeks ago over this very issue. And as we find out, this is another reason when, if it had been advertised, we could have heard from people ahead of time. The reason I asked to suspend the rules was because I got a phone call on a Friday night, as I told the council, too late to get a matter on the agenda, and I was concerned about this issue. And from young Matt Gendron, now I can identify him. I called him a young man at the time, but Matt Gendron did call me on a Friday night and explained the dilemma of what he understood. The reason I asked for suspension is because I thought time was of the essence. If, had this happened, programs were in the spring, we're talking about summer programming, could we get some information on this and get a report back? Look, and at the time, I said one of the concerns I had is that we have our priorities straight. It was the Girls and Boys Club that I brought up because Matt had explained to me that they had been utilizing the courts. Now, I can remember when Parks and Rec had tennis lessons. It wasn't all that long ago, was it, Commissioner? 15? Wow. But anyway, I do remember that people could sign up for some lessons through Parks and Rec. And then the Boys and Girls Club has filled in a service over the past few years. So that was a concern, and it was also a concern that citizens have, residents of the city have the opportunity to play tennis and not be shut out of courts. It could be there are courts underutilized in the city, and maybe that's where the permit should go. But I think there are other issues as well, and it is something that, and I mentioned in phone calls I had with people, we talked about, can you rent a park for a wedding? Can you rent a park for a party? Can you rent a park for a birthday party? I mean, this was a discussion over the past year, and it wasn't all profit, or revenue generating, but it was an issue because people are, and so forth. And so now we're on to another phase. Does it make sense? And I think, first and foremost, we have to come to a point and say, as a matter of public policy, do we want to utilize assets of the city to, and I understand the intention here. It's to leverage, I don't think it's to make the money on the court as much as it is to fill in a gap on a program. But it can be, we have limited space. It wasn't that many years ago that we renovated those courts. I mean, they were in bad shape, and they were down and out for a period of time, and now I don't play tennis, but I just look at them when I drive by. They look okay to me. So, I think we have an issue, and this is one that, there is a gap between Board of Parks and what they do and what the council does. The council sets policy. We had no communication on this. So the first I hear is a Friday night from Matt Gendron, and my reaction was, what? You know, that's crazy. Of course not. This has to be for the city. You know, and so assuming and understanding everybody's had the best intentions, I think we have to step back and look at this whole issue. And I think there are a number of other issues that it raises, whether it's at McPherson, whether it's at, you know, Shed Park, and it has to do with some liability issues. I assume that's been looked at, but, you know, does the city have liability in terms of you know, people getting injured or what have you, in if they're getting free lessons, whether it's kids from the city, in lieu of the Parks Department providing the lessons. What happens there? What happens, you know, in terms of, you know, priorities? Because this is where cities can differ from towns, you know, whether you could have 1,000 kids say, I want lessons. So how are you going to prioritize that? You know, who is it, first come, first served? You know, those are some issues, regardless of whether it's the Boys and Girls Club, but, you know, in this area, what are we doing about that? If there's an subscription and over demand, how do we deal with that? I mean, that could always have been the case, but, you know, even if the parks were offering it, but was there a way that, you know, people were somehow treated fairly in the process? We don't know that because we don't control that. I think we need a lot more information. And, you know, and first and foremost, what I said a few weeks ago still holds. I think we have to have our priorities straight. I think it has to be for the residents. I don't know if people are coming from out of town for lessons. Are these pay-for lessons limited to residents of the city of Lowell? All right, that's problematic because, you know, the city of Lowell is a big city. There, you know, if people who are residents choose to pay for lessons, that's one thing. People come from out of town, that's another story. So, you know, these are all things that I don't think I know we haven't dealt with. I know as a matter of policy, we haven't talked about. And since it's risen to this level of an issue, I think it has to come back, whether it's the same committee that subcommittee that dealt with, can you lease out a park for a wedding? You know, but these are things that I think we have to look at. And you know, one of the things that has to be addressed, and we have to, I feel, is take care of the needs of the residents of the city first. And because they are paying for it. I mean, I don't think we make them pay twice. People pay taxes, and taxes provide these recreational facilities. They are few and far between, and we have had cuts in recent years. So I think that should be our first obligation. If we can somehow bring in programming, so be it. But I think we owe it to the people who pay taxes for this. So, you know, naturally, it's a problem right now. I think we have to figure out how we can address it. And I think if it's policy, if we can weigh in on the policy, then we should do it.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I begin, I was wondering if you'd allow me to yield some of my time and allow the gentleman who is looking to rent the tennis courts to maybe say a few words, since everybody else seems to be weighing in on the issue and we haven't heard a word from him. I would think that may be a fair thing to do.
Well, Councilor, we certainly can do that, but as I said before, there are councilors who haven't spoken on this issue that want to.
As long as maybe we can reserve that. I guess I agree. Councilor Donahue spoke at length on the issue, and it could be a policy issue. I'm not sure that the city solicitor said we could break the license. What are the mitigating circumstances, or what is our exposure if we were to change course and begin to selectively take power away from the boards and commissions because folks get up and don't want something done?
Well, first of all, currently the city code gives the jurisdiction over parks and recreation areas to the Board of Parks. So you couldn't usurp that
So we don't have
without
the authority.
changing the city code, number one, first of all. Then if that was taken away from the parks, and there is a statute, Chapter 45, which deals with parks and the creation of a board to administer the park. So there may be a statutory concern that we'd have to address as well.
Thank you. I guess I actually commend the manager for thinking outside the box on this issue and looking to leverage our resources, because as we all agree, I think we all went forward with this with the best intention. And it seems to me that if we don't have jurisdiction over this issue, then, you know, perhaps Councilor Caulfield and Broderick are correct. Maybe we let this program go through, we assess it, but then we're going to come back and address the policy issue.
I didn't hear what you said, Councilor Ramirez. What'd you say?
I was alluding to the fact that if this is a policy issue, that if the board of the parks already has the authority, and we don't have authority over that, that maybe the program needs to be allowed to proceed, and then we assess it afterwards. I think earlier you talked about revisiting the policy or what can be done to compromise. And what I'm saying is that if the city solicitor is accurate, and I don't have any reason to believe that he is not, and we don't have any jurisdiction over the current program license that's been given, that we allow for it to proceed, and then we then assess what we want to do about giving licenses.
Councilor Ramirez, the parks in this city are for the taxpayers and for recreational purposes. They come first.
I didn't say I disagreed, Counselor. I'm simply stating the facts of the matter.
Right. Councilor Milanazzo, then we'll let Councilor Mercia have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. This is a difficult situation we find ourselves in. Listening to the debate this evening, I'm hearing some good points and some bad points, unfortunately. The good points having to do with in my opinion, again, the free tennis lessons having come from the Public Housing Authority, working on a number of youth service programs during my tenure there. I think providing free lessons to kids from other parts of the city is a good thing. The bad thing, in my opinion, is that it appears to be putting the taxpayers second, and I think that we need to deal with that issue. I want to make sure that the taxpayers who are paying for those parks have first choice. Again, I don't know how we can work something like that out. I understand, listening to the Assistant City Solicitor as well as discussion here, that this falls within the purview of the Board of Parks. But I mean, I do think that we need to take a step back, try to balance our approach to, if we're trying to identify monies to bring into the park system, that we need to do it in a balanced approach, and we do have to keep the taxpayer in mind. It's my understanding that this idea did in fact come from people in the neighborhood that are interested in Shed Park. I'm not sure that they fully understood the impact it was going to have across the city, or at least in some sectors of the city, if you will. But I think that it's now been brought to the city, and I think we have to, maybe Councilor Donahue's right, we have to take a step back and try to prioritize the approach to this, because, again, good points, bad points, but because of the issue that it's so negatively impacting our taxpayers, I think that at the end of the day, it's just something that I would not be interested in supporting.
Thank you. Councilor Ahmed Mercia.
Thank you very much. In listening to the debate, I thought of a beautiful cartoon that could appear in a newspaper. Young Matt Gendron, young people, old people from Lowell, taxpayers outside of the tennis court watching kids or old grown-ups from Acton and Concord and Carlisle playing. Boy, what a great picture that would make, I'll tell you. I absolutely agree with the previous speaker who said that if this is $10,000 that we're interested in, it's not worth it. Absolutely not worth it. There are some other parts of the program, however, that make a lot of sense. As far as raising money to replace the $10,000, those monies are being raised every quarter when they pay their taxes. And the taxpayers of this city are the ones that we owe our allegiance to. I don't think $10,000 is worth for us doing this. As far as the city solicitor's opinion, or rather his comments, I'm glad I'm not a lawyer, simply because I believe very strongly that this elective body has authority over these matters to some degree. And I would suggest that one of the authorities we have would be to ask the manager, to ask the Board of Parks to revisit this issue with the understanding of trying to get it resolved based on what we've heard from the taxpayers tonight. Now, I don't know if that's a violation of anything. I don't think it is. City manager works at the city council. Ultimately, the city council is responsible for those decisions. I know that the Board of Park, by law, by ordinance, by whatever, has the outright authority. But I would suggest, Mr. Manager, based on what you heard, based on the controversy that exists, that we ask, through you, the Board of Parks to revisit this with the idea of coming up with some sort of a compromise. And then we could probably develop a policy for later and not wait for a policy to be developed. In the meantime, this issue is still going on. So that would be my suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I neglected to recognize Victoria Hayden, Matt Gendron, and Jennifer Curry. You spoke eloquently and with a lot of passion. I just have two questions, Mr. Manager. The Board of Parks handle this whole situation? They handle. Was there a contract signed with this?
Again, I think I already.
Well, I keep hearing $10,000.
That's the permit.
Is that a verbal agreement?
That's the permit fee that they've discussed.
But is it a verbal agreement that this man is going to pay the city $10,000?
At this point, we issue permits. We receive requests. I believe the number that I heard today was some 800 requests for permits that were received during the year, and we received a number of requests for permits. This by a certain date. This request came in, as I said earlier, due to a snafu. The Boys and Girls Club did not request these. The Greater Lowell Boys and Girls Club did not request these, the permit for these courts. And so in looking at it, the Parks Department issued the permit to this organization with the understanding that these free lessons would be given to the citizens of residents of Lowell, and that they would pay a fee that would go to the city of Lowell.
I hear $10,000. Is there anything in writing that states that the city will be reimbursed?
Not as of this point in time. It's
nothing.
Being, right.
So there's nothing in writing. Nothing
very frankly, the fee schedule that we have indicates, I believe, a smaller amount that would come to the city of Lowell. But the intent is to try to raise that number up. We're trying to increase the amount coming to the taxpayers of the city.
You know, as Victoria Hayden indicated, it's $10,000. The people who use those tennis courts they'll double that. They'll raise the money. It's not an issue of money. It's the issue before us is we're taking something away from people who have used those tennis courts for years. And now we're saying, no, you can't, because this gentleman from Concord has a permit. He's going to give
right.
lessons.
I understand that, and it like any other public facility that we have, and I understand the council's, the comments made by a number of the councilors regarding the taxpayers. And again, that's why you have fees, so that the taxpayers are reimbursed for the use of what they've paid for. And the free lessons is something that we saw as a public good that would go out those 7.5 hours to the citizens of the youth of the city of Lowell. And I recognize that the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell provide 3 hours of tennis lessons per week for those 6 weeks to eligible youth from the Greater Lowell area that can benefit as well. So we're trying to balance both of those, that the youth of the Greater Lowell area can take advantage of the Boys and Girls Club, and the youth of the city of Lowell can take advantage too of the this particular program.
Well, I totally disagree with the whole concept. We're cheating the people in the city.
Right. Again, in what's happened in other communities, and this is something that back when the financial crunch started hitting municipalities some years ago, a number of communities eliminated their recreation programs, and they looked for alternative ways, as Councilor Ramirez said, thinking outside the box to try to make these things happen. And this is being utilized. It's being utilized to bring services into the communities, both urban and suburban. I believe the city of Boston has some very active programs of this nature that they've drawn upon, as well as a number of people have referenced some suburban communities, and these are the programs that, you know, the residents of the city of Lowell have indicated to me that are interested in seeing happen here. I think as of this point, we have 22 people that have signed up for free tennis lessons with this program. So, and unfortunately, they didn't, they didn't know that this was going to be a discussion for tonight. I imagine they may weigh in at some point in the future in some way, but I'm.
Mr. Manager, do you want to hear from Mr. Bellegarde about the fee structure?
Sure.
Good evening. When we approached this, when the citizens groups called me regarding this issue, I basically looked at this as I do with all the other issues pertaining to parks. We have many park partnerships in the city. As you know, there are citizen groups out there that are raising money as we speak to embellish their parks. The Friends of Shed Park is one of them that's going to be doing some extensive help, giving us some help and support in the next 2 or 3 months with the water facility that we're doing out there. But this recreation opportunity was basically that. I got a call from a citizens group, made some sense to me. I discussed it with the city manager, just like we would with any park program that we do. Back in the day, back 15, 17 years ago, Jennifer Hayden worked for my staff under me, and she was absolutely correct. In those days, we hired 250 recreation people, and we did tennis, we did water, we did arts and crafts. We did all those mini camps you see on every corner in the city. Those camps are gone. The day of the park counselor is a thing of the past. We had to learn and live and reinvent ourselves to facilitate recreation in the city. And we've done that by empowering the citizens groups, the different nonprofits in the city, the housing authority, the various groups in the city that stepped up to help us out. And we developed that healthy summer concept several years back. And that's because of the fact, and it's happening everywhere, that as dollars shrank down, we had to find innovative ways to continue the process of providing quality recreation opportunities for the kids. When I heard there's a contractor out there that was willing to provide free tennis lessons to our youth, and then tournament play on Friday, Monday would be the free lesson, Friday would be the tournament play, and then when we got into a little more conversation about that, found out that this is a bona fide gentleman, a bona fide company, comes well recommended, well respected, and then reached into it a little bit further and found out that he's willing to do it at no cost to us in terms of the staffing. The staffing issue on that's at least $5,000. That staffing we'd have to provide that we don't have the money to provide to offer these lessons. Then we went a step further, and I talked to him about the permit price. I mean, per ordinance, we went through a lengthy debate when it came to the parties and the weddings and whatnot, and we reinvented ourselves with the permit process through the ordinance process. And we found out that, in simple terms, if you go by just the raw numbers for the permits, you're looking somewhere in the vicinity of $5,000. After talking with the city manager and talking with the contractor that's going to deliver these services, he said you're at least up to 10, possibly 15, maybe more. So if this didn't come about, there was a meeting scheduled for Thursday. We were going to actually develop a spreadsheet, give you something you could look at, that you can measure, and something that we could present to the city manager, the city council, the Board of Parks. But the bottom line was that this was something that I thought would expand the recreation opportunities for our kids, expand the base for recreation opportunities that we're trying to offer through the Healthy Summer programs. And as the manager indicated, we also were looking at the possibility and working closely with other organizations like soccer and lacrosse and some of those other folks that had some kind of an interest in this as well. So, as I said, and I've heard a lot of things over the past few days, and believe me, all the things that we did was basically looking at what's the best way the best bang for the buck, and to provide those opportunities that maybe the recreation department wouldn't have been able to offer this summer. And it would happen to be Shed Park. And the reason why Shed Park's so attractive, as everybody's indicated, is yes, there's plenty of parking, off-street parking. There are 8 tennis courts. The ring courts consist of 6, and then there are 2 along Boylston Street. So it's an opportunity where, and again, looking at this from my point of view, from the recreation side point of view, it would only be tying up 3 of the 8 courts. And basically, when you look at the profile of the city, we have several parks that have tennis courts, and as several of the speakers have indicated, they are underutilized. And as I said, I just felt it was a good opportunity to begin something new, something different, and something that would bring us to the next step, which is trying to find ways and means of expanding our recreation base. And that's basically where we came from. There was nothing going on as far as bringing people in. I was approached, and I thought it was a good idea, and I brought it to the city manager, who brought it to the city, to the Board of Parks, and the Board of Parks thought it was a good idea too, and here we are.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Bellegarde. Councilor Broderick?
Real brief, I just want to thank Commissioner Bellegarde. I don't think anybody would ever question the intent behind it. You do a wonderful job, especially with the resources, and I think it's great to see department heads, thinking outside the box and trying to make things better for everybody and responding to citizens. I think this is a simple case of just old-fashioned compromise. Hopefully, they can be worked out without any formal action and browbeating and so on, and that maybe we could. Someone can bring in a motion later, or I can make it now to establish some type of policy. Certainly these programs, have use in other communities, and I think we just need to determine if that's the case here, and how it can be set in terms of where they're going to be. There's got to be a balance. You give away the prime location that's used all the time. It might not have been the best way to do it. So I think, again, good old-fashioned compromise, and this hopefully will go away for now and be straightened out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rita Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If there's no further discussion from my colleagues, could I suspend the rules and allow Bob Hayden to come before the microphone, please?
Well, Councilor Mercier had already asked for someone else to be heard. Is there any interest for the other folks?
I'll yield to
If you're interested, you're not required to. Any objection? Nope. To hear from Mr. Leclerc? Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, I didn't expect this to be a controversy. As you know,
not everybody knows your name, so
I'm sorry. My name's Maurice Leclerc. I'm the owner of the Next Champions. We run programs in other towns around, recreation departments specifically, and I did not expect any kind of controversy like this whatsoever. This is the first to me. Furthermore, I'd like to applaud the Haydems for their decades of the tennis enthusiasts that they are. Bob and Jen are national champions, something that I've never experienced and quite jealous of. And again, I'd like to applaud them for that. I'm not here to monopolize any courts. I came in with a good heart, looking to offer free lessons to the city children of Lowell. And I think one of the biggest controversies is the Boys and Girls Club utilization of the Shed Park courts as they have had in the past. And I don't believe that should be taken away from them at all. I'm more than willing to give up that time that they have had in the past, as I stated with my original proposal, that we would work with any entity that has worked at Shed Park with the tennis program. They're looking for 1 day a week. It doesn't seem unreasonable that they continue to use that facility. They should not be displaced to go to another facility in the city, in my mind. And if they were on Wednesdays and that's when they played, let them keep their time. I'm not looking to move anybody out. They have been there. They deserve to be there. We can work around that time. It's very simple. And there's plenty of time in the day that it can all work out. As to Councilwoman's question about the free lessons, there's a big discrepancy out there about that. There are 2 pamphlets that are out. One is for a non-resident and one is for the resident. Somehow, the City Council has not received the resident pamphlet, of which I have right here if you'd like to look at one. On the website as well, we have all our site locations, of which we have 7. On the Shed Park location, it does have a link that says non-resident and resident. If you plug on that, you can print out this resident pamphlet, which states very clearly, summer clinics complimentary for children of Lowell. As for my geographical location, come on, guys. Is everybody in this city who owns a business from Lowell? I'm sure there are plenty business owners do not live in Lowell. Because I live in Concord, I seem to be getting pretty well bashed on that. not only here tonight in a few of the comments that were made, but very much on the radio. And that doesn't seem right either. I'm not here to step on anybody's toes. I'm here to work with any program. I'd love to give the children of Lowell the expertise that my program can give. Hopefully we can work it all out and move on. I'd love to work with the Hayden family with that. If we can supplement the Boys and Girls Club and provide instructors at no cost to them, would love to do that as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And there was a motion to suspend the rules to hear from Mr. Hatem. Any objection to that motion? Okay.
Councilor Broderick, Caulfield, Donahue, the Merciers, and Jim Milanazzo, I thank you for talking to me prior to this meeting, and also the city manager. I really, as you could see with the words of Mo, tennis is really a game of genteel people, gentlemen and gentlewomen. And let's begin with that. There's been a lot of misinterpretation about why this began and who started the whole thing. And Matt, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, because you never should have talked to me. But you did a great job tonight. I'm sorry to say that I've come here because of a few principles, not politics and not profit, and not against the kids of Lowell who need free lessons. I have no opposition to him coming in and giving free lessons to the kids of Lowell and working with the Hatem family. I must oppose, however, the use of public facilities for private gain. And Mr. Bellegarde, I've known you for a lot of years. My children have worked with you and for you. But the fact of the matter is, this arrangement between your department and a fee-based program, you can't ignore the fee-based program, because that violates the deed and the gift of the property of Shed Park to this city. It's in direct violation of Freeman Ballard Shed's contribution. And the solicitor might go back and look at the deed and find out that nothing commercial can take place on that property. The only investment the city has made in that property since 1910 has been the field house, because it was initially needed to service the high school players who used the baseball fields and the soccer fields. And it's ironic that in the writing, the history, the deed, 12 tennis courts, no, 2 baseball fields, 8 tennis courts, 2 of which, I'm sorry to say, are at risk for people who play on them. The courts on the street always are loaded with tree branches, twigs, acorns, never swept, and they are not good for people to play on. So the deed is one issue. The second reason I have a problem with this is, as soon as an arrangement is made for remuneration through the department, they become contract laborers for this city. That's what they become. And I asked the city manager the question, well, gee, have you done a Corey check? And the answer was no. Well, if you're going to work with kids in the city of Lowell, look, it's just like any nonprofit organization or any municipal organization. You need to do a Corey check. And if you haven't done them, it's too late to do them. And I'm sorry, Mo. That's the second reason. The third reason, in my opinion, is the permit process was not designed for private sector. It was designed for individuals, number one, and organizations in the city. By using the permit process to contract this, it circumvents the state law that says you need to issue an RFP and call for bids. Those are the 3 reasons the permit should be pulled for this year. And I will commit to you and to Mo to work for the city of Lowell to develop a comprehensive plan for the entire community. Never has the Boys Club been an issue here. And for Mo to offer that tonight supports that it's not an issue. But this is what the city has done with this pound foolish approach, pennies wise, pound foolish. When the city wanted the Fed Cup here, who did they call? And who did we go to work with? The USTA. And were there tennis lessons then? Yes. Big brother, big sister. Girls Inc., Boys and Girls Club of Lowell, using the Lowell High School facilities. Since that time, we've had a commitment with USTA. They gave us one grant 1 year. The rest of it, the resources come from the work of Kevin Broderick, who's the director of the board, okay? And they come from our economic development director here in the city, who works for the board. And that's the reason the city has had any tennis program whatsoever. What has not been said here is USTA, and that's tennis in this country, came to this city, looked at every tennis court before they awarded us the grant, and they said the only court you can use if you get this money are the Shed Park courts, because every other court had risk situations for tennis players. Now, frankly, what is this all about? I have been working with USTA. She works for the Boys and Girls Club. The grant provisions from USTA to cities like Lowell, urban areas for program, range up to $125,000 to restore tennis courts. That's what Bob Hayden's been volunteering his time for. And the grant, there's no remuneration out of the grant to me. And frankly, yes, we can work together, but no permit this year. If you want a tennis program in the city, I will volunteer my time, work with Mo Leclerc and other tennis pros to bring tennis to the kids of Lowell. And you know, you voted on many items tonight that $36,000 here, $36,000 there. $36,000 would have financed your entire rec program for every park in the city right now. And frankly, I urge you to pull the permit for the retired guys who need the court every morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. Any further discussion on this issue? I think there was this.
I'd like to make a substitute motion that this matter be revisited by the Board of Parks to arrive at a conclusion that's satisfactory to everybody.
Second.
Second.
Okay, substitute motion by Councilor Armin Mercier, second by Councilor Rita Mercier, to refer it to the Board of Parks, the manager, both.
And have them revisit the issue, because I know we do not have the authority to force the Board of Parks to pull the permit by law. But we do have a responsibility that I think my motion brings to the forefront, and have the Board of Parks revisit this, and hopefully, through the manager's effort, come up with some sort of solution that's satisfactory.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's approved. Next item is a order for, and thank you all for coming down this evening. Next item is a order pursuant to Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 13-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are implemented for a period of 60 days. Motion to waive the first full reading by Councilor Broderick, second by Councilor Milanazzo. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The first full reading is waived. Second reading by title. An order pursuant to Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Mass, concerning Section 13-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, Temporary Traffic Regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. This concerns no parking on Edward Street. Roll call.
Councilor Armin Mercia? Yes. Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milanazzo?
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott? Mayor Martin?
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
8 yeas, the order is approved. Next item is a vote pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 1. The City Council of the City of Lowell consents to incur liability and make expenditures in excess of available appropriations for major disaster, including but not limited to flood, drought, fire, hurricane, earthquake, storm, or other catastrophe, whether natural or otherwise, which poses an immediate threat to the health or safety of persons or property. Motion to waive the first full reading by Councilor Ramirez, second by Councilor Milonazo. All those in favor of waiving the first full reading say aye. Any opposed, the first full reading is waived. Second reading by title, a vote that pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 31, the City Council of the City of Lowell consents to incur liability and make expenditures in excess of available appropriations for major disaster, including but not limited to flood, drought, fire, hurricane, earthquake, storm, or other catastrophe, whether natural or otherwise, which poses an immediate threat to the health or safety of persons or property. Questions? Motion approved by Councilor Armin Mercia, second by Councilor Broderick. Roll call.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott. Mayor Martin.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
8 yeas, the vote is approved. Next item is a vote authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and expend funds from the Board of Directors of Project Bread, the Walk for Hunger, in an amount up to $3,769.02 under the Summer Food Service Program Site Incentive Grant. Motion to waive the first full reading by Councilor Caulfield, second by Councilor Donahue. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, the first full reading is waived. Second reading by title, a vote authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and expend funds from the Board of Directors of Project Bread, the Walk for Hunger, in an amount up to $3,769.02 for the Summer Fund Service Program Site Incentive Grant.
Move approval.
Motion approved by Councilor Rita Mercier, second by Councilor Ramirez. Roll call.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just speak a little bit about this. This is going to be the works of the director, Lynn Brown Zunis, who is going to offer, through this grant, a feeding program in conjunction with Project Bread, and they are going to have their site for the summer program over at the North Common, which is a swimming area, and it's a place where it will be highly utilized by the youth of our city. We're going to have our senior volunteers go over and serve the food. It's a great opportunity for the seniors to work in conjunction with our youth, and I think this is a good start. It's a very new program over there, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about it, because we don't hear a lot about what our seniors do, and yet these are volunteers that'll go over there and offer their services for free to be feeding the youth, as well as offering crafts, and we're about to buy some tables with our funds so that they can bring them over there. And I think there'll be a program available as well with the state so that some of our seniors that want to take part in it can have some time to swim over there on days that that pool is not being utilized. So I think it's a win-win situation all the way around, and thank you for allowing me to talk about it.
Thank you, Councilor. If there's no objection, I'd like to make a brief comment about it myself. The folks from Project Bread came up to the city. They met with Senator Pangiatakis, city manager, myself, and a group of other people in various departments in the city. And they want to help and get people fed through the Healthy Summer program. But as we heard from the last discussion, we don't always have enough recreation programs or sites available to the city. So this actually was the idea of Lynn Brown Zumis, to create a site where kids could get fed lunch at the North Common, which is a state-funded pool, because it's so close to the senior center.
That's right.
That the seniors would then staff the site as volunteers, and also be able to use the pool when it wasn't open to the general public. So the folks at Project Bread were really quite taken by the suggestion that Lynn made, and this is something I think we're going to submit to consideration to the Mayor's Association as kind of a innovative and best practices method, and really the work of the director of the Senior Center, I think, continues to impress all of us. She's constantly looking to push the envelope and look for innovative ways to provide service not only to senior citizens, but really to the entire city. And this is a perfect example of that. It's a very worthwhile program. Sure the council's going to support it, but really, I think we owe Lynn Brown-Zunas a great debt of gratitude for her
Thank you.
continued creative thinking.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Roll call?
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott. Mayor Martin.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
8 yeas, the vote is approved. The next item is a vote authorizing the city manager to execute a license agreement between the City of Lowell and the Bread House, Inc. for use of a portion of city property located adjacent to the premises at 11 Kearney Square, Lowell, for the purpose of sidewalk seating. Motion to waive the first full reading by Councilor Rita Mercia, second by Councilor Donahue. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The first full reading is waived. Second reading by title, a vote authorizing the city manager to execute a license agreement between the City of Lowell and the Bread House, Inc. for use of a portion of city property located adjacent to premises at 11 Kearney Square, Lowell, for the purpose of sidewalk seating. Any question? Roll call.
Vote.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez. Yes. Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott. Mayor Martin.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
8 yeas, the vote is approved. Next item is an appropriation transfer in City Council in order to meet fixed charges and current expenses for the City of Lowell for the year 2006-2007. It is ordered by the City Council of Lowell as follows, that the amount of $146,500 is hereby appropriated to Public Works, salaries and wages overtime, $15,000, salaries and wages streets, $28,000, Public Work, utility, electricity, $40,000, and Public Works, energy, street lighting, $63,500. In order to provide for such appropriation, the above amount is transferred for said purpose from Public Works, salaries and wages temporary, $2,000, salaries and wages administration, $26,000, salaries and wages land and buildings, $42,000, salaries and wages engineers, $14,000, salaries and wages electrical, $6,500, maintenance and equipment, $3,000, transportation reimbursement, $3,000, rental of uniforms, $8,000, building supplies, $3,100. Yeah, and various other accounts.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
To provide funds to cover the expense of settlement of wages due to employees terminated in 1996, as well as to fund some energy accounts. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, it is my understanding that there were 3 phases of payments to be paid back to former city employees who, in my opinion, were unjustly terminated back in 1996. The first phase, as far as I understand, I don't know if you were here at that time, but it was, the first payment was to the employees who were deceased. It was to their estate. Yes. Is this the second phase, or is this the last phase? How much more do we have to pay?
This is the second phase. We have one more of $23,000 next year, as well as some outstanding claims that we're still litigating.
So who is this phase, the second phase, being paid? Who are these people? Or is it a portion of them?
You looking for Councilor, you looking for the names of the people?
No, I don't want the names. I want,
these are 4 estates, 6 rehires, and 1 terminated.
okay. And let me ask you, out of the $146,500, how much is going to the energy account?
103.
103?
$103,000.
So all we'll have left in the next phase 3 would be
$23,000.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that there's only $43,000 going here towards that settlement.
That's correct.
And the rest of 103.5 is for utility and street lighting.
Exactly.
I have a question. Are you the one that developed this, where it's coming from, Mr. Moses? I mean,
That was actually Mr. Walsh.
okay, you mean that we had $90,500 worth of wages, temporary and permanent, available to grab? How come so much?
I believe there's some vacancies, people that are out on workers' compensation.
That much, huh?
Workers'
So
compensation.
if it wouldn't be for this, that'd go into the free cash if we had this money at the end? Pretty much so?
We don't have any free cash for it
Well,
to go
we
into.
would have. We would have.
But
We would have
will.
with this.
This would have put us less in the negative.
It gets you to think, though, when budgets are being developed, and you're able to free up $90,000 when there's only about, what budget's over, the expenditure time is over, that there's always some cushion in the budgets.
I don't know if
there's $90,000 here of temporary and permanent wages that are freed up that isn't being used.
I don't know if there's always some cushion, Counselor, but oftentimes you can find some savings in various accounts and other accounts that are running low, and that's bottom line always turns out to be about the, hopefully you find a surplus at the end of the
And then
year.
we have a $10,000 amount for plows and frames. Does that mean we're not going to buy the plows and the frames, or we didn't
need them to replace those.
Okay, thank you. Move approval.
Motion approved by Councilor Armin Mercia, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. Councilor Broderick, did you have something?
I had just a quick question on the energy costs. We've had quite a bit of discussion on this. This is, for this year, it's running 103,000 over?
For this particular year, it was underfunded early on. This was one of those accounts that was, it had bills that we had to pay from last year that had to be carried over, and some additional costs that just weren't estimated high enough this year.
Okay.
We still are ahead of, in terms of our total energy usage or cost, we're still ahead based upon the contracts that we signed.
Okay. And lastly, and maybe to our auditor, I assume this year when we vote on our budget, we will have actuals to compare?
Those will be there'll be actuals from last year as well as some 6-month actuals that we'll have available for you for the current fiscal year.
Because I know some of this seems it was a bit of a guesstimate.
And I'm sure that the auditor will be able to provide you right up to date actuals.
Great, thank you.
Roll call on the transfer.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Donahue.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott. Mayor Martin.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Before we go to the subcommittee reports, I'd just like to bring to the council's attention, since we're on a budget transfer, prior to entering the chamber tonight, I did have the occasion to speak with Mark Rosengard, who is back to work, at least on a part-time basis, still under his doctor's care, but it was good to see him in the building, and certainly we wish him a full recovery and glad to have him back. Subcommittee reports. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a joint meeting this evening of the City Council and School Committee subcommittees on school building. We did receive back bids for the 2 schools that we've been discussing over the past several months, namely replacing the Maury School and the old Butler site, the Sapasara School, as it's been named. The bids came in, let me say at the outset for all of the council, and hopefully everybody has the information tonight. Let me start out by saying what the subcommittee did was recess until a week from tonight to give everybody ample time to digest all of the information, because not only in terms of the bids, what they came in at, but what would be the cost for building both schools at this time, one school, namely the Maury, and delaying on the Sapasara School, and how those costs figure into not only the ongoing budgets, but how it figures into other expenses that the city will incur over the next 20 and 25 years, other outstanding obligations. At any rate, let me just recap. As you may remember, and I'll try and do this as coherently and quickly as possible, when these costs were set back in 2001, the program was put on hold, and we had to, then when the program was restarted, the costs were set in time. And so what today we see to build both schools, the cost to the city of Lowell would be $43 million. And though we were, back in 2001, a 90% reimbursement school or city program, the practical effect today of the $43 million that it will cost to build both schools is that the state would pick up $23 million. The other $20 million to do both schools would be the city's responsibility. We were given information as far as what that would mean in terms of the city's, the impact. And in essence, and I may not be doing this full justice, but in essence, that $20 million, there's a program, if the city opts to build both schools right now, then the $20 million that's not being paid, there is a loan subsidy program being offered, and though this may get confusing, $10 million of which would be at 2% over 25 years, a subsidized interest rate, and the other $10 million at a rate of about 5%. What does that mean? Essentially, it means that instead of $20 million, it's more like closer to $30 million over the life of the loan that the city, that would be subsidized because of that 2%. So instead of the 23 million, add another 7.5 or so million. So out of the 43, 30 million would be in essence subsidized. If the city decided to only build one school and then wait to do the second school, the Sapasara school, there's some uncertainties there. The uncertainties being that we don't know what that would cost because we'd be looking for another site. We may have land acquisition to do that. We do know that the cost to build it would increase, obviously, over the next few years. And that increase, again, we're guesstimating what that might be. And so we are given a scenario as to what the impact there would be. One of the problems we have is that under the new program, the new school building program, we don't know whether we would figure in as a priority project. We probably wouldn't because we aren't, we're replacing schools, we're not building schools because of overcrowding. And also we don't know what the rate of reimbursement would be. It could be 75%, it could be 70, it could be 65. So these are all variables and unknowns. But we know the cost of construction will likely go up. And so, you know, those are some real concerns going forward. So the other issue is that we will have to take into consideration is if we chose to build the Maury alone, though we could qualify to get 90% reimbursement on that, right now the state's offering $23 million in grants to do both schools. The Maury's going to cost $20 million, but we can't get all $20 million. We can only get 90% of that. So we'd use $18 million of the grants, leaving $5 million on the table, which the city couldn't access or utilize. So that would be one consideration. The other consideration is that if we chose not to go forward with the Sapasara school, we've already incurred architectural costs and design costs of $1.7 million, which we're going to have to bond over 20 years, and that's going to cost well in excess of $1.7 million. Again, we'll have nothing to show for it. So this is a very complex issue, and one that, as I said, the subcommittee feels strongly that the subcommittee wants to study all of these options, consider over the next week if there are further questions for the manager, for the project manager, or for Jay Lang, the assistant superintendent involved in this. Now's the time to try and get as much information as you can. There's no easy answer here. It's expensive either way you look. The other issue that we did address with the superintendent, which we had several months ago, and that is to make absolutely certain that both schools are necessary in terms of the district. We know that the schools that we're talking about replacing are very much in need of replacing. The Maury School is one of the worst categories in the state by state calculations. The Varnum School is also in poor condition, as is the Washington. So all of these schools are in very much need of replacement. The next level of inquiry is, population-wise, do we project that we're still going to need just as many classrooms? And the answer is yes, based on the studies that the school department has conducted. And so, it's more than just a question of fairness, that every child should have the opportunity to go to a school that is of the same standard or equally as providing for good educational opportunities, but they have to be replaced. So this is going to be a tough decision, I think, for the council. A decision that, as I said, the spreadsheets that have been provided by the manager, by Mr. Moses, really merit studying, and if there are any questions, we plan to meet again, reconvene a week from tonight at 5:30 to again revisit this issue and come up with other questions or other issues. There is a little bit of a time constraint here because we've been on borrowed time with the state as to whether or not we're going forward with one project, two projects, or whether we're going to take advantage of this low-interest loan program. And they originally wanted a decision in January, and we've postponed our response for several months. Now that the bids are in, I'm sure the state's going to be looking to us for our answer. So that's a report of progress. I don't know if any other members of the subcommittee have anything to add, but we will be revisiting it a week from tonight.
Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councilor Donohue touched all the bases. It's, as I pointed out during the subcommittee meeting, the city has built $250 million worth of new schools to the cost of the taxpayer of $25 million. These two schools will be a cost of $20 million to the taxpayer. It's a huge decision, and I understand the children at the Varnum School. The Varnum School needs an awful lot of work. It's not, believe me, not the state-of-the-art school, the Maury School, the Washington School, but $20 million, it's a large price tag. So it's something I have to weigh seriously. So.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although I'm not a member of the subcommittee, I did attend the meeting, and this is going to be a very difficult decision on our part because of the cost, as Councilor Caulfield has just indicated. The dilemma I have is that if we just do the Maury School, we get 90% reimbursement by formula that is used by the SBA. If we do both, that number drops down to 65% because of using that old formula. There's a big difference there. It's 65% of both as opposed to 90% of one. If we choose to delay, or rather to seek the Sapasara School at a later date, right now the formula, if we qualify, is 75%. So if we were guaranteed that, then it would be best to wait for later, get 75% of the Sapasara and pick up the 90% of the Maury. But there's no guarantee on that. So it's going to be a tough decision, and I think the subcommittee did a great job. There's more information that's required. We didn't have a full complement of the council tonight, which is, I think, necessary. That's why I asked the subcommittee to just recess so that Mr. Elliott could be here, who has shown an interest in this. So it's going to be a tough vote.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
If I may, Councilor, I think you made an excellent point, and is sort of driving some of the direction of my recommendation. Is that you're right? The easiest thing would be just the 90%, and then if we get the 75%, but there isn't a guarantee on the 75%. And as time goes on, the cost goes up. And while we may receive a 75% reimbursement, it may be a larger number, which means that the actual dollar amount results in more cost to the city. And that's something I think we have to look at very, very carefully. It is a difficult decision that the council has to make, and certainly we'll do our best to provide you the information necessary to make that decision.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Anything further? Motion to accept the subcommittee report as a report of progress by Councilor Milanazzo, second by Councilor Armin Mercia. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Any additional subcommittee reports? Okay, we'll move to the motions. First motion by Councilor Elliott, request the manager have Verizon place the phone on pole number 2 Woodward Ave at Father McGuire Park.
Is that a phone?
Phone? I don't get it.
Is that a phone?
Contact Verizon, request they install a telephone on pole number 2,
Really?
Woodward
never
Avenue at Fartham. I guess.
I never saw a phone on a pole.
Hey, that's Woodward Avenue in Pawtuckaville. I second the motion.
All right. All right. So, any discussion? We could delay action on this. I don't see any point to doing that. We could vote it. Mr. Manager?
If the council so votes it, deference to Councilor Elliott, I'll be happy to contact him and see exactly what he has in mind.
We're talking about. Okay.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Rita Mercia. City Council requests the city manager have the proper department replace the missing street signs throughout the city.
Speaks
Second
for
by
itself.
Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It does speak for itself. However, I think we want to be informative. I think we want to be neighborhood-friendly in that when people come into the city, I don't want them to be flabbergasted because they can't find a particular street, and the reason they can't is because there's no sign on the pole. So besides a phone being on a pole, I'd rather have the street sign being there, if you don't mind that.
Yeah, we can do both.
Councilor Caulfield.
On that same vein, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, I received a call from a constituent at River Place, and there seems to be a road, a walkway, and people think it's a throughway, and people are driving their cars on it to find out they can't turn around. So if we could put up a sign up there, do not enter, because this constituent watches these people make U-turns, and she's very afraid that someone's going to cause a serious accident, okay?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, just one more thing about my motion. Perhaps we can add the phone number for the potholes, the graffiti, and the same phone emergency number could be used to inform the particular people that answer the phone in City Hall that a street sign is missing at such and such a location, and that number is 978-970-4035. If we could just remember that number, that's a very important number. There will be a message machine, and someone will be getting the message at all times. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. Next motion by Councilor Rita Mercia. City Council requests the city manager have the Parks Department repaint the Stocklosa sign at Alumni Field. Second by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you very much. Some time ago, many years ago, I added Stanley Stocklosa's name to a Alumni Field over there, and as I go by, it's so faded you could not even see it anymore. And so I think out of respect for the person whose name appears there, I don't think it's right to Stanley to see it disappearing like that. It should not be. It was a motion, it was approved, it was there. I think we paid $600 at a particular sign shop. Might have been 8 years ago. I don't know, with the sun fading at it, and it's disappeared. If we could just refurbish it, I think that would be good to the person who has done so much and deserves that honor over there.
Thank you. Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly wholeheartedly agree, and I don't know how ancillary this issue is, but there, off of Hovey Street, there is a walkway that connects Hovey to the Sullivan School. It's sort of, we call it Black Path, and there are a couple of fences there that some neighbors put up. And I understand that there's been some gangs that have put their mark, and they've actually spray painted those fences. And if they're public, if there's a way to get somebody over there to just paint over them, if they're private, maybe we can talk to neighbors. But it's an eyesore, and I'm getting some phone calls on it. So, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? Motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Rita Mercia. City Council requests the city manager have the DPW commissioner place Cedar Court on the repaving list. Second by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Rita Mercia.
The reason I'm bringing this up again is because it was a past motion of long ago, but it's getting to the point now where people are driving. There's only like 5 homes on that street, but it's such a ruddy street that it's ruining the undercarriage of the people's vehicles, and I just wanted to bring that up again. Thank you.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made a motion a while ago about the list we had. you were going to have...
What list?
Right.
Yeah, the one that was thrown out the window years ago.
Yeah.
It starts with Cedar Court, remember that.
That's a project that the former city engineer was working on, and we have a new city engineer that's starting, I believe, next week, and that's one of the top assignments that she has is to start to redo that list.
All right.
She?
Thank you.
It's a she?
Yes.
It's a she.
From Chelmsford.
From Chelmsford?
Yeah.
No.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed, the motion's approved. The next motion by Councilor Caulfield. City Council requests the city manager have the proper department place no dogs allowed signs at Bajicalupo Park on Shattuck Street. Second by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Downtown Neighborhood Organization meeting a week ago Monday, and this subject matter was brought forward. And we have many people living downtown that weren't living downtown 7 years ago. And with people, you have pets. And some of the people who attended the meeting indicated to me that you cannot go into the Mary Baggage-Lupo Park now because people utilize it for their dogs and so forth. And we do have an ordinance that says you're responsible for your pet and you're responsible to clean up any mess left by your pet. And that's not being done. So the Mary Baggage-Lupo Park was named after Mary, just a beautiful, passionate person, and that's exactly what that park is. It's beautiful, it's passionate, it's a small park, but people can go in there in a hot summer day, sit down on the bench under the shade of some cool trees and relax. They can't do that now, Mr. Manager, and the ordinance has to be really enforced, especially downtown. People take their dog for a walk, and the mess is left for someone else to clean. So the neighborhood organization would certainly appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. I know that there's been an organization I've been contacted by, I think you have as well, about getting some type of dog parks or a dog park to start so that this problem wouldn't happen, hopefully. And I was curious as to if we could get a status on that, if there is one.
Yeah. Mr. Manager, I know there was a meeting last night of this group. I was going to file a motion next week, and maybe we'll get a report for the packet for next week. I know this group is not this particular park, but would like a park to bring their dogs to, so that it's known that that's where dogs should go, and so you're not interfering with the rights of other people. You want to go ahead? If
Yes.
You have more, if you have more to report, fine.
I don't actually have. I've heard rumblings of this, but I'm not really that familiar with the specifics of it. But certainly, it's something we can begin to look at and work on, particularly in the downtown area. But throughout the city, there may be some sites that we could use.
Councilor Caulfield.
Mr. Mayor, at that meeting I attended, that was brought up, it was discussed. But once again, if the city builds this park and it's fenced in, they're still responsible. They still have to clean up after their animal. It's not a free walk.
Council, I don't dispute the motion at all.
Right.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, someone placed a sign. It read "Unofficial Dog Park" at the corner of Prescott and Central Street on land owned by Mass Bank. I think they probably thought it was public land. So I went out and removed the sign, and we're going to be working with the Historic Board to try to come up with a sign just notifying the people in the area that, number one, it's owned by Mass Bank, and we're going to ask them to try to keep it clean and beautiful because it's part of a beautification project for the downtown, but it's really something that people just need to know that it's privately owned at the corner of Prescott and Central Street.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed, the motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Caulfield. City Council requests the city manager have the law department draw the proper vote and sign department place a handicap sign at 423 Chelmsford Street. Second by Councilor Rita Mercier. Councilor Caulfield.
Mr. Mayor, the motion speaks for itself. I spoke to the gentleman. He is handicapped. He has a handicap placard, and I'll further that information to T.J. McCarthy. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed, the motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Broderick. The City Council requests the city manager address the letter from the Director of Veteran Services to the Veterans Council. Second by Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think everybody was copied on this anyway. I got it Wednesday night, and I was kind of aghast at it. A couple of things really is the inaccuracies in it. It talks about an application. What this is, I assume Mr. Dussault's letter is referring to is a meeting about 3 weeks ago when I addressed a letter that was left on my desk, and everybody thought it had already been taken care of, escalating 3 of the crosses up to the automatic qualifications. This really is dealing with the qualifications that the council had taken up and implemented as a policy. And apparently, obviously from the letter, he was upset that he wasn't, I guess, included in the loop. I'm not too sure if there's some type of feud going on, but I found the letter to be insulting. So did the Veterans Council, and it was made an official insult by being put on the city letterhead. And I just think that it's totally inappropriate and unprofessional. And Mr. Manager, if you could, I'm assuming that your administration doesn't condone it. If you could maybe address that with them so it doesn't happen in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also received the letter. I know Mr. Dussault is in City Hall approximately 6:30 every morning, puts in the long hours. I read the letter. I guess it's interpretation. I didn't see it insulting. It was probably to provide information to the Lowell Veterans Council. I didn't see anything where it was out of line. After all, he is the veterans agent, and he has the applications in the office, and he does a tremendous job for veterans in the city, and I support him 100%.
Councilor Broderick.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Through you, I wasn't going to read the letter, but I guess maybe people can decide for themselves. It starts off, let me introduce myself. I am Joseph Dussault, Lowell Veterans Service Officer. My understanding is he and Mr. Page have known each other very well for over 20 years. I'd say that's pretty insulting to start off with. I've been in this position since...
I have to interject here that I think we're moving in some very dangerous zones when we talk about an individual and we make accusation against this individual while he's not here. I really think this is a matter that should be resolved by the manager and not by the council. We don't have that type of jurisdiction. I looked at the same letter. I didn't see any insult in it, but that's my interpretation. And so if Mr. Page, who wrote to all of us, was insulted by it, pick up the phone and you call Joe Dussault and resolve it. These are two veterans that have known each other for years, and I really don't think it belongs on this council floor. And I don't want to hear Councilor Broderick tell me what he thinks of Joe Dussault without him being here in a disparaging way, and that's where I think it's heading.
Excuse me,
I want you to rule him out of order if he steps over that boundary.
I think Councilor Broderick's entitled to read the letter if he wants to read the letter.
He's editorializing.
Well, then roll call on it.
Okay, well, first off, I wasn't disparaging Mr. Dussault. I was discussing and giving an interpretation of a letter that was context of emotion. So this has nothing to do with Mr. Dussault. I don't know the man that well. I'm not saying he's not a good veterans officer, okay? What I'm saying is I think it's inappropriate to send this letter on city letterhead, first off, without even accurately stating what the issues were. This is embarrassing. That's what I'm stating. Now, if someone else wants to have a different interpretation, then they're entitled to it. I understand that. But when the interpretation's questioned, I think I should have the opportunity to explain why I was insulted, and maybe they all want to come in and explain from the Veterans Council why they were insulted, because it came from a motion from the Veterans Council floor. So I understand some people aren't going to be insulted by it. My name's in it. I think it's ridiculous, and that's what I'm stating. There's no statement on the floor by me, and there won't be, that Mr. Dussault is not doing his job, okay, that he hasn't done his job. It's simply stating, I think this is inappropriate, and I don't like to see it on city letterhead, and I don't think it should happen.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's inappropriate that it should be in a public forum like this. For one thing, Mr. Dussault is on vacation. He's not even here. I have the greatest respect for Bob Page and Joe Dussault. I don't want any part of this. This has nothing to do with us. I refer this to the city manager and let him do what he thinks is right. But it's a feud, I guess, and I don't want to be a part of it. I like them both too much to bring it here before the public to a letter that he was referring only to one individual and not the whole Veterans Council. That's my opinion, and I know that you don't say that Joe Dussault has done a tremendous job for our veterans. I know firsthand the remarkable work that he's done, and I'm not going to besmirch his name at a council meeting.
I don't think anybody's doing that, Counselor.
And I think the motion referred it to the manager to address it. I'm not suggesting that he dress him down
It shouldn't have been
or
here to
anything else.
begin with. I don't think it should have been here.
And that's why
You pick up a phone and call the manager and discuss this type of an issue outside of the cameras. That's what I would say. It's a personal issue.
Counselor Donahue.
It seems to me that the motion is referring it to the manager. But the fact that a counselor was mentioned in a letter from the city brings it to a different level. It was written on city letterhead. It was in a formal capacity. It was not a personal matter. It was done as an officer, an agent of the city. It specifically mentioned a specific city councilor. I think that councilor has every right in a motion or a matter of personal privilege to bring up the issue and ask the manager to address it. I think that's all there is. And I don't think we should make any more of it than that and let the manager address it.
Okay.
I think we have more important issues to discuss in the city than discuss a letter between two individuals, and let the manager handle it.
Oh, I said that about the Lord's Prayer, but look where he got me.
So what, we're
I think it should be-
excommunicated, you're
So did a
not.
lot of other people.
Yeah.
Mr. Manager, did you? Okay.
Based upon the vote of the council, I intend to look into this.
All right. Is request for a roll call on this?
No, move the question.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Broderick. The City Council requests the city manager contact St. Margaret's School relative to use of their parking lot by Calvary Park Leagues. Second by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a result of, and I'm sure everybody hears it, there's a lot of congestion over at Calvary Park, both sides of the street. There's no parking signs, but in an effort to get around the fact that somehow we have to alleviate the problem and without hopefully towing, I was hoping the manager could contact St. Margaret's and see if there's a possibility of discussing them opening the gates and letting people along the street park inside and take the traffic off the street. It's difficult for people in the area that live there traveling. It's also a safety hazard with kids running around in not in between cars. People are more concerned about scraping paint trying to get by than kids in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. Motion to adjourn by...
Mr. Mayor, just very briefly. My wife and I will be traveling from May 31st to June 10th. I told the manager, and I'm not missing a council meeting, but I don't want to miss the budget hearings either. So I hope that my colleagues can arrange that the budget hearings will be conducted in a way that I can attend those. Thank you.
Council, we're going to have to take up the schedule when we have the budget. I mean, I think there are others of us that may be traveling other parts in June, so...
Well,
I think if there's any way to accommodate you, we certainly would do that. But I think, I don't think we can commit now to certain dates.
No, but I'm saying, I know Council Milanazzo will be traveling too, so
All right, well, why don't we do this?
Depending on that kind of budget, I might be traveling too.
Yeah, I mean, if there are councilors who have travel schedules in June, why don't you submit them to my office or to the manager's office, and we can see if we can work around them.
I did that already, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Donahue?
It would just seem that, not to put any pressure on you, Mr. Manager, but the sooner we get the budget, we can maybe take care of it in May, which would be a first. So it would be, and we wouldn't be under the gun if we had to revisit it again later in June, any other issues. So just another little, add it to the list. Huh?
Sure. The Donahue list.
All right, motion to adjourn by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Meeting stands adjourned.
TJ wins?
Yeah, we didn't do too, but it sounds like